The headlights are flashing high and low and high in your face, and you will never have to go to work again. You will never have to get another haircut. Quick, the mechanic says. The car swerves again, and the mechanic swerves back into its path. What, he says, will you wish you'd done before you died? With the oncoming car screaming its horn, and the mechanic so cool, he even looks away to look at me beside him in the front seat, and he says, 10 seconds to impact. 9, 8, 7, in 6. My job, I say. I wish I'd quit my job. The scream goes by as the car swerves and the mechanic doesn't swerve to hit it. More lights are coming at it just ahead, and the mechanic turns to the 3 monkeys in the back seat. Hey, space monkeys, he said. You see how the game's played? Fess up now, or we're all dead. A car passes us on the right with a bumper sticker saying, I drive better when I'm drunk. The newspaper says thousands of these bumper stickers just appeared on cars one morning. Other bumper stickers say things like, make mine veal, drunk drivers against mothers, recycle all animals. Reading the newspaper, I knew the Misinformation Committee had pulled this, or the Mischief Committee. Sitting beside me, our clean and sober Fight Club mechanic tells me, yeah, the drunk bumper stickers are part of Project Mayhem. The 3 space monkeys are quiet in the back seat. The Mischief Committee is printing airline pocket cards that show passengers fighting each other for oxygen masks while their jetliner flames down towards the rocks at 1,000 miles an hour. Mischief and Misinformation Committees are racing each other to develop a computer virus that will make automated bank tellers sick enough to vomit storms of $10 and $20 bills. The cigarette lighter in the dash pops out hot, and the mechanic tells me to light the candles on the birthday cake. I light the candles and the cake shimmers under a little halo of fire. What will you wish you'd done before you died? The mechanic says and swerves us into the path of a truck coming head on. The truck hits the air horn, bellowing one long blast after another as the truck's headlights, like a sunrise, come brighter and brighter to sparkle the mechanic's smile. Make your wish quick, he says into the rearview mirror where the 3 space monkeys are sitting in the back seat. We've got 5 seconds to oblivion. 1, he says. 2, the truck is everything in front of us, blinding bright and roaring. 3, ride a horse, comes from the back seat. Build a house, comes another voice. Get a tattoo, the mechanic says. Believe in me, and you shall die forever. Too late. The truck swerves and the mechanic swerves, but the rear of our Cornish fishtails against one end of the truck's front bumper. Not that I know it at the time. What I know is the truck headlights blink out into darkness, and I'm thrown first against the passenger door, and then against the birthday cake, and against the mechanic behind the steering wheel. The mechanic's lying crabbed on the wheel to keep it straight, and the birthday candles snuff out. In one perfect second, there's no light inside the warm black leather car, and our shouts all hit the same deep note, the same low moan of the truck's air horn, and we have no control, no choice, no direction, and no escape, and we're dead. My wish right now is for me to die. I am nothing in the world compared to Tyler. I am helpless. I am stupid. And all I do is want and need things. My tiny life, my little shit job, my Swedish furniture. I never told anyone this. But before I met Tyler, I was planning to buy a dog and name it Entourage. This is how bad your life can get. Kill me. I grab the steering wheel and crank us back into traffic. Now, prepare to evacuate Seoul. Now. The mechanic wrestles the wheel towards the ditch, and I wrestle to fucking die. Now, the amazing miracle of death, when 1 second you're walking and talking, and the next second you're an object. I am nothing, and not even that. Cold, invisible. I smell leather. My seatbelt feels twisted like a straitjacket around me, and when I try to sit up, I hit my head against the steering wheel. This hurts a lot more than it should. My head is resting in the mechanic's lap, and as I look up, my eyes adjust to see the mechanic's face high over me, smiling, driving, and I can see stars outside the driver's window. My hands and face are sticky with something. Blood? Buttercream frosting. The mechanic looks down. Happy birthday. I smell smoke and remember the birthday cake. I almost broke the steering wheel with your head, he says. Just nothing else. Just the night air and the smell of smoke and the stars and the mechanic smiling and driving, my head in his lap. All of a sudden, I don't feel like I have to sit up. Where's the cake? The mechanic says. On the floor. Just the night air and the smell of smoke is heavier. Did I get my wish? Up above me, outlined against the stars in the window, the face smiles. Those birthday candles, he said. They're the kind that never go out. In the starlight, my eyes adjust to see smoke braiding up from little fires all around us in the carpet. That was from Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Great stuff. Movie edition. Sale. But great stuff there. Oncoming traffic. Trouble with cars, huh? Almost a near-death experience there. Maybe it means more than it says. But let's go and get things started here on the Thomas Hunt Show. Today is Saturday, March 28th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the Thomas Hunt Show. The price of Bitcoin is down 2.4% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,237, a high of 6,706, and a low of 6,109. That's $1 for 16,063 Satoshis, just a little bit over the 15,000 Satoshi barrier. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is closed because it's Saturday and they're lazy. It closed down 4% on Friday, down 915 points, with a last of 21,636, below the previous close of 22,552. They've also turned off the money printer because it's weekends. But actually, you can't turn that off. You got to keep it running. Checking out coronavirus cases worldwide, here comes the big refresh. 622,343. We are over the 500,000 infected worldwide number, which previously had been doubling around every 7 days. Deaths from the coronavirus up from around 23,000 to 28,802. Stay the fuck home. Stay home. Don't interact with anyone. Try not to order things. If you do order things, clean them. If you have to go to the store, clean your stuff. If you go to the store, try to buy at least 2 weeks of food. Make it so you don't have to go to the store again for a while. If you've got food, just eat your food at home, stay home, read a book. Got lots of time to read books, clean up, organize. It's a good time for projects. Like you could make masks. Wear a mask. Make a mask if you don't have a mask. Make masks for others if you know how to sew. As Matt McCarthy writes, new CDC guidance on masks is expected to change in the next 10 days. Americans will be advised to wear masks in everyday life. Current recommendation is for high-risk groups only. We've been reporting on this for quite a few days now, that masks are effective, more effective than nothing. While certainly a homemade mask made out of a t-shirt isn't going to be as good as an N95 or an N99 mask. It's going to be better than absolutely nothing. This has been obvious. Any logical person could have figured this out. But since we didn't have masks in the US, perhaps they decided the best thing to do was to tell us that they were ineffective. Another great thing to do would have been to have a bunch of people make them and give them out, give the people something to do, give them something positive to work on. Could have been a nationwide program, and really, it still could. As Balaji says, official misinformation continues, getting everyone to wear even imperfect masks all the time is an intervention we could quickly and cheaply deploy at scale. There are dozens of papers responsible. There are dozens of papers on the topic. We need to find the people responsible for this and have them post a retraction. Checking out the chat. Is it still working? I think so. Is the video and audio working? Because here it goes. We're going to play a clip from Governor Andrew Cuomo. Governor Cuomo writes, "I operate on the data and on the numbers," in response to President Trump's claims that New York does not need 40,000 ventilators. Maybe they're just making it up. We're going to play some of this clip here. Again, YouTube. Oh, we're not even going to be able to play this clip. Let's see. Okay, so they won't let us play it with ads. Meanwhile, YouTube's going to steal our ad rights if we play it. Fascinating, huh? It's fun. So let's see. We'll turn off ads for them for a little while anyway. Just so at least we can play this video. So here we go. Cuomo responding
Let's talk about ventilators.
to Trump saying that he doesn't need ventilators. It's a weird full screen button. All right, here we go from CBS News, Lester Holt. NBC News, Lester Holt.
Has suggested that maybe you don't need those tens of thousands of ventilators you have spoken about. Were you surprised to hear that? What's your reaction?
No, look, I hope he's right. You know, I hope no one gets sick. I hope no one needs a ventilator. But I don't operate on what I hope or what I would like to see or what my expectation is. I operate on the data and on the numbers and on the science. And every projection I have from multiple sources, and these are worldwide health experts, say that we have to be prepared for an apex of 140,000 hospital beds and 40,000 ICU beds with ventilators. That's a numerical projection from the rate of increase. My job is to follow that science, follow that data. I hope they're wrong. I hope I don't need 40,000. I hope I don't need 30,000. I hope I don't need 5,000. I hope this whole facility, Lester, stays empty. And we built it for nothing.
And that's what I hope too. I hope that we don't need all of these things and that we're just preparing for nothing and that we have too much stuff. Too much stuff, wouldn't that be good? But I don't think we're going to go that way. I think we're going the other way where we won't have enough stuff and we'll be saying last minute, gee, I wish we had some more stuff. Boy, wouldn't it be great to not be out of stuff and to be able to help people. So yeah, it's a pretty obvious comparison between him and Trump. Trump just kind of makes things up, and Cuomo's just here with a number saying that he needs ventilators. You know, he's got to help his people. And it's a pretty stark contrast with what the president's being at. I'm just going around deleting my old tweets, fixing my new tweets. Restream did that thing where we went into the wrong video again, so we're coping with that here and trying to get everything fixed, get everybody into the same chat, onto the same page. Volume's low. Here's some more volume. But yeah, it seems loud in my headphones, but who knows? Let's see. Get the retweets out. Okay, so I fixed the tweets, got rid of the old tweets. Good. Let's keep moving here. Like the show. Everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We're just fixing the graphics and stuff. We were in the wrong chat. But looks like we've got 8 likes so far. So going over to the screen where you can see that. Let's see if that works. Oh, there it is. We got 9 likes. So thanks so much for liking this show. And, let's get this thing going here. Coronavirus cases in the United States. Here comes the big refresh. 98,000 becomes 105,778. Coronavirus deaths, 1,731. This has broken the 100,000 level. Previously, we were looking at a double around every 2 to 3 days. It is keeping up with those numbers. So it doesn't much matter if the rates are coming in or the testing is changing the numbers or the numbers are wrong. The numbers keep doubling. It would be better if they weren't doubling. This is the coronavirus. Donald Trump just advertised Bitcoin after the Fed creates $6 trillion. According to Cointelegraph, Bitcoin gained ironic support from U.S. President Donald Trump on March 27th after he appeared to say he supported manipulating the dollar. In a press conference quoted by various Twitter commentators, including Samson Mao, Trump defended the Federal Reserve printing more than $6 trillion. Trump: "The dollar is our money, our currency. The beautiful thing about our country is $6.2 trillion because it's 2.2 plus 4. It's 6.2 trillion. And we can handle that easily because of who we are, what we are," he said. "It's our money. We are the ones. It's our currency." While Trump did not provide any further explanation of his train of thought, he appeared to endorse the Fed providing the astronomical sum of liquidity for the U.S. market. In turn, the dollar supply would be heavily expanded. It is this form of meddling in the money supply that forms a central tenet of Bitcoin as a financial solution. The coronavirus epidemic emboldened its supporters, who watched on as the Fed admitted that it had infinite money.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
An infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. As Mao summarized, how much did we pay Trump to advertise Bitcoin? Ha 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 ha. So that's kind of good. Bitcoin and Ether prices stagnate as traders take wait-and-see approach. From CoinDesk. CoinDesk writes, Bitcoin and Ether appeared to be in a period of consolidation where prices bounce around within a tight range, showing indecisiveness amongst traders. Bitcoin and Ether had both climbed by less than 1%. Notable performers on CoinDesk's Big Board include Ripple up 10%, Stellar in the green 3%, and Dash up 4%. Traditional markets, meanwhile, continue to reel from the record unemployment claims in the U.S., part of the fallout from the coronavirus outbreak, despite a $2 trillion stimulus package making its way to President Trump for his signature. U.S. stocks closed with the S&P down 3%. Japan's Nikkei 255 closed its session up 3.8%. For Europe, the FTSE 100 index closed in the red 3.3%. Bitcoin development activity is being funded by these players. Multiple Bitcoin projects have been supported, and competition across the blockchain space is heating up. Let's see what's going on. Who is supporting Bitcoin? Wow, what a short article. It says, here we go. Blockstream and Lightning Labs have become by far the top institutions working on Bitcoin development. Seeking to create long-term solutions to the scalability challenge, both are pouring significant resources into sidechains that promise to ease congestion on the main network. The picture becomes murkier when you're looking at development funding. There are several entities that provide funding for Bitcoin projects, most of whom are non-profit. Chaincode Labs and MIT DCI top this list, while still others such as DG Labs and Square Crypto also play a role in this space. BitMEX notes a total of 33, core contributors to the current Bitcoin development. However, many more likely exist and cannot be easily tracked. Nevertheless, there can be no doubt that the flagship cryptocurrency remains well supported. Interestingly, but not surprising, the Bitcoin Foundation, once the key voice for all things Bitcoin, has fallen into obscurity. although still technically active, it appears to be uninvolved in any notable work on the platform. So much for all that money they gave to the Bitcoin Foundation. That really didn't work out. As some of you may recall, way back in the day, there was a Bitcoin Foundation, and they tried to represent Bitcoin. Obviously, no one liked it. No one likes to be represented by a single foundation, and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of rebellion and anger and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, they spent all of their money far too quickly back in the day when Bitcoin was hardly worth anything at all, and now they don't exist, and no one even remembers them. The Bitcoin Foundation. A few years later, they tried to create I forget what it was called now, maybe BTC Foundation or the BTC, something like that, the BS, and everyone got really mad. Everyone was like, we don't want a single voice to represent Bitcoin. The media is just going to go to you and get wrong information. At a certain point, you're going to plug your own company, which they were doing all the time, saying that, in addition to being the president of the B, I'm also work for this such and such a company and this such and such. So every article would mention the company. So it benefit really well. But it got shouted down, and it is no more. At this time, there's no kind of official Bitcoin Foundation or any other kind of thing that represents Bitcoin. Blockstream is probably about the closest we have, but even that, people are conspiratorial and worried about and all that kind of thing. So shout out to, I think this is Bitcoinist for this most recent article. Checking out Forbes, which also made me unblock all their goofy ads. Bitcoin will moon if the U.S. creates a new digital dollar. Well, they keep talking about this digital dollar idea, and I keep thinking it's not going to happen. So while a lot of strange things happen in the middle of crisis, while a lot of strange things happen because of the opportunity, the idea that the U.S. would just create a digital dollar in the middle of this crisis just doesn't jive with me. I've seen a lot of these CoinDesk articles. They seem to have someone covering it. They have a lot of talk about it. So if you want to check it out, this is from Forbes, but you can also go to CoinDesk and check out all of their coverage of the alleged digital dollar. I think at the very least, they just want a way to get the people the money faster than sending them checks. I think they're going to use the existing direct deposit system. So if you had the IRS direct deposit your refund, they already have your information, and you just have to go in and claim your stimulus. Then you'll get directly deposited. So in that way, it would be like a digital dollar. I mean, so that's one thing. On the other side, there's already a digital dollar that the Federal Reserve and the banks use, that they send money around. We actually have more electronic currency than we have normal currency, but no one ever pays attention to that because it's just the banks and all that, and it's not like Bitcoin. It's not the kind of electronic currency that you can take off the exchange, that you can spend and send anywhere. That's part of the magic of Bitcoin, right, is that it lets you do that. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be a digital dollar, but boy, are people excited to write about it. So go read some more articles about the digital dollar if that's what you're into. Oh, we're going to do the news. But before we do the news, it is Saturday in the park. I wish it was the 4th of July. First, we're going to talk about chess pieces. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of the Lewis chessmen from the Isle of Lewis near Scotland. I'd also like everyone to give us a thumbs up and a share. We have about 40 people watching us right now. We have about 14 thumbs up. So I'd like to see more like 20 if we could do that. 50% is kind of our goal. 75% would be awesome. As I've told you guys, YouTube judges these videos by how many likes they get. So please like this video and like other people's videos. YouTube is free. Most people don't make any money on this at all. Pretty much like that. But yeah, let's get some more likes. So checking out on the far left and the far right of our chessboard, we would have this guy right here, a very unique piece. This is a berserker. This is not just a rook, but this is a crazy rook. Look at the way he's chewing on his shield, the madness in his eyes. This is the British piece. You can tell because it's smoother than the other one. It looks more new. It looks less aged. and it doesn't have a felt thing on the bottom. So now let's check out the Scottish version of the Berserker. Similar in design, a little more etched and scratched, a little more aged, as with the rest of the Scottish set, and felt on the bottom. So very cool. In addition to these two Berserkers, which are rooks for my set, I was also really fortunate, and when I was in Scotland, I picked up this guy. He's called a Warder. A Warder is also just a rook, but he's different in design than the Berserkers. So these are some pretty interesting chess pieces, kind of the oldest chess set in the world, and it's pretty neat to have my own copy and my own pieces that I can lift and toss around and describe to you. So check out the Lewis Chessmen. Here's a Berserker, and here's a Warder. So pretty cool. Check that out. So there you go. There's your palette cleanser. Now we're going to do the news. Once again, I'm really not understanding all these people with the whole hate and the big exit letters that they keep leaving about how they're leaving the show and they're not going to watch anymore. I've always been liberal. I mean, maybe I've hidden it from you and been really quiet about it, but I've always been liberal. I'm not a fan of a lot of different things. It's really not, I mean, we try to make everything into these simple classifications, but it's actually a lot more complicated than that. Going back to the Obama administration, for example, I'm not a fan of his drone program. I don't think it was a good idea for the U.S. to just kill people from drones, right? So, we have to take nuanced opinions and nuanced views on things, and that's what this show is supposed to be about, is thinking. You're not supposed to just believe what I say. You're supposed to think about it, right? And part of thinking is to take in information that doesn't agree with you. Now, right now, the facts on this do not agree with the current president. It doesn't matter left or right, whatever. Basically took a month off, and he's basically kind of doubting the severity of it right now, trying to reopen the country. So I really don't agree with those facts. Don't agree with this president. Someone else said that I wasn't so much hating on them, that I was frustrated. And I agree with that, because I think we're in a slow motion. We're on a train, right? And the train's been going real slowly towards our destination, which is massive coronavirus outbreak. And, 5-6 days ago, I said we were going to go over 100,000 infected in the U.S. We're over 100,000 infected in the U.S. A long time ago, TV became completely about this. The commercials changed. Red Lobster to go, Subway for pickup. Movies disappeared. Baseball, hockey, basketball stopped. So this is just a much, much bigger thing than we thought before, and we need more serious leadership. So when I do the news, part of it is that frustration. And the other part of it is that these are just the facts. So today we're definitely going to say some good things about President Trump. He's activated the defense program. So he's supposed to be controlling parts of the economy, saying to companies like General Motors, it's time for you to make ventilators. You might not make a great profit. You might have to change one of your plants or whatever, but the government will take care of it later, and General Motors will make ventilators. So he put someone in charge of it. Not crazy about who he chose. He chose this Daniel Navarro guy or something. I'm pretty sure, as I recall, he's this economist that no one agrees with. So we'll have to see how that goes, but hopefully he steps up into this role and starts directing the economy like you do during wartime. During wartime, we had production quotas. We wanted to make this many tanks. We wanted to make this many Jeeps. We made them. We cranked them out, and the industrial production of the United States is one of the main reasons that World War II ended the way it did. If we want to beat this coronavirus, it's time to do the same thing. The industrial production of the United States must be making ventilators and protective gear. If we have too many, like the governor said earlier, it's not a big problem. Like, we actually win then. Additionally, like we talked about yesterday on the show, South Africa, India, other developing nations are going to be hit hard by this. And if we have extra ventilators, if we have extra gloves, we can donate them to these nations and we can save other lives. So that's basically what this is about. It's kind of a public service. We're talking about the news. I'm going to have phone calls later. If you disagree with me, call in. I'll give you the floor. I'll let you talk for a little bit. I mean, you can tell me about Fox News and, the things that you think and how, the virus isn't that serious. And again, at the end of this, we might all be in agreement. We might all sit back and say, you know what? The virus wasn't that serious, but we couldn't figure it out till we got to the end. On the other side, we might be sitting there saying, my goodness, that virus was much more serious than we thought it was. But in the same way, we're not going to know till we get to the end. I see a lot of people without any information at all trying to say that the current information is no good without any information about that. So, I mean, yes, we can all have gut feelings and we can all have instinct and intuition, and you can place your bets on horse racing that way. But when it comes to placing your bets on keeping people alive, I think that these ventilators, this protective gear, we don't lose by making a bunch of it. And we really don't. And we can prepare for next time. I think this is going to completely change our society. I think we're going to be talking about this for years and years and years, whether you want to or not. So let's check out the news, what's been going on in the last 24 hours. On MSNBC right now, they had one of those taglines on the bottom of the floor. It said, states and cities build hospitals in public places. They're building them in stadiums and soccer fields. And we were all questioning China when they did the same thing in Wuhan. It's all connected. This all comes back. We were all questioning them. And if you want to see where we are in the schedule, you want to look back in time so you can look forward in time. After China closed everything, after China built emergency hospitals, then they got the really serious quarantine and they started going around spraying all the buildings and so on and so forth with what I can assume is disinfectant. So preview of coming attractions. So it's getting cold out here. I had a pretty mean little line I put out. The only good thing about the coronavirus is that they won't make any more episodes of Star Trek Picard. And I still have 2 more to watch. No spoilers, please, of the last 2. Not that it really matters. The plot's been terrible. But it doesn't seem like they have any connection with these characters at all. It doesn't seem like they watched even a single episode of Next Generation to understand who Picard is and how he would act. Instead, we have just a lot of fly-by-our-pants writing. A lot of things, I think, stolen from Dune. You pretty much have a warrior race of religious females having shared religious experiences about the end of the world caused by artificial intelligence and androids. That's Dune. That's Dune. So just watch Dune. Just read Dune instead of watching the Star Trek. I would disavow it from the rest of Star Trek. But of course, if you're like me and you're a real hardcore Trekkie, you're going to have to watch it anyway. And if this is true, I hope that you'll enjoy the Red Letter Media reviews. They do fantastic YouTube videos, and they've been doing recent ones about Picard, breaking down every episode with lots of references and links back to the Next Generation when Picard and other characters act completely opposite of how they're acting now in this bizarre show. So it's also a Star Trek that features lots of F words and vaping and smoking cigars and admirals like using the F word at Picard. It's just a bizarre imagining of the Star Trek universe. So not a fan. But it's good to be distracted by anything these days, so I'll take what I can get. As Balaji says right here, the future of the world may be a decentralized West and a centralized East. Interesting. Really thoughtful stuff, as usual, from Balaji. Definitely follow him on Twitter at BALAJIS. Balaji. Very cool. My Best of the British Museum series is continuing on Twitter. Check out the Crystal Skull from the British Museum. This is famously a fake crystal skull. It told people that it was made by aliens, made in a single piece, and that we couldn't find any markings or tools, as if it had been mined out of a single piece of crystal. Of course, as it turned out, they examined them at high magnification in a scanning electron microscope. The detailed investigation revealed clear evidence that some features were carved using rotary cutting wheels. This kind of equipment was not available until the Spanish conquest of Mexico in 1521, so the skull cannot be of Aztec manufacturer. Instead, it looks like it was made by Europeans working in Germany or Brazil during the late 1800s. And what's so interesting about these skulls is they made at least 2 or 3 of them, and they distributed them all over the world. They planted them in places to try to convince people that they were Aztec and real, given that the Aztec had some magical ability to make these, or maybe even an alien UFO connection. Woo! They also made that terrible Indiana Jones movie, which also I don't think should exist. We should just ignore it. Especially that Tarzan part where he's jumping on all the things and then he rides a motorcycle and it's out of control. Balaji, there is no other choice. Do well only by doing good. The first slide of any deck from now on is, how are you helping people deal with the virus? It doesn't need to be drugs or vaccines if you lack those skills. It can be remote work or games for the millions on lockdown. But that's the criteria. So this really is a world change here. Everything's shifted. It used to be, you like movies and you like music and you want to make those things, or you want to, help people, or you just want to earn a living, have a family, whatever. The first slide of any deck now should be, how are you helping people deal with the virus? Balaji is kind of predicting the future, seeing into it, seeing a clear need for a new focus, a virus focus. Just in the way we wanted to win the war, we wanted to beat them, we need to beat the virus. And even when the vaccine's here, we're going to have to beat the virus. We're going to have to essentially, as we talked about yesterday, and it's getting a little sci-fi horrifying out there, but we're going to probably have to redesign society. They're starting to give out certifications that you've been cured. That might become a stamp. It might become a tattoo. It might become a chip. It might become something on your phone. And you might not be able to go to the movie theater if you don't have your chip, if you don't have your stamp. Like, we're not far away from this. So we need to already start thinking, maybe there's better solutions. Maybe there's anonymous ways we could store this data. Maybe there's, some better thing we could do. But otherwise, if you don't think of it now, something else is going to be jammed in. So get your ideas out there. We have a cool new video on the World Crypto Network. Check it out down below. Hanging out with Thomas Hunt. Hey, that's me. And Bitcoin Katya at the Lightning Conference 2019 in Berlin. It's pretty cool. We were just hanging out at the conference talking about books. Talked a little about David Foster Wallace, sci-fi, other stuff. Fun conversation. Little lighter, not a very serious interview or anything, but just hanging out. So something good. Maybe check out the audio podcast version. That would be great to just listen to in the background, I think. Be fun. Another disappointing story about Trump. Sorry about this, guys. Trump to Mike Pence. Don't call the woman in Michigan. And he's referring to Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The governor and President Trump are escalating their feud. And it seems like the president might be choosing not to send medical aid to Michigan because of his disagreement with the governor. This is not how things should be done. We're supposed to be rising above at this kind of time. If you were distributing vital aid, you would hope you would be able to just kind of give up your personal differences for a little while and help the good people of Michigan, who incidentally voted for President Trump, delivering their entire state to his electoral college victory. It's a strange way to repay them. We talked about this. Governor Cuomo, the National Guard, and FEMA are transforming the Javits Center into a hospital. Once again, the United States is deploying the kind of makeshift hospitals that we saw in China. So once again, if you want to see a preview of what's going to happen here, look at what happened there. Shipments of urns in Wuhan raise questions about China's coronavirus reporting. I'm still not sure why they haven't just analyzed the crematoriums and the smoke. I heard very strange stories. As everyone knows, China was shut down, so there was hardly any pollution at all in the country. Then all of a sudden, Wuhan started running their crematoriums 24/7, allegedly, according to stories I've read. If that's true, we should just be able to calculate how many bodies you can burn per hour and get at least some kind of estimate of the true number of dead in China. This new shipment of urns is also making people question it. And there was a very strange report of 21 million cell phones being turned off in China. So those of you who don't know, in China, your cell phone is your identification. It's how you buy things. It's, of course, your personality, your app, your photos, all your things. So for 21 million people to cancel their contracts, allegedly, and there might be some kind of good reason for this, I'm hoping, because it's way, way too big. I mean, we're thinking right now the Chinese estimate around 80,000 cases of coronavirus, resulting in around 3,000 deaths. More likely, I think 8,000 deaths might line up better with what we're seeing from the other countries, but I don't have any information on that. That's just looking at the other countries. If it was 80,000 cases and 21 million dead, obviously the case number would be wrong then too. And certainly China's a large country, but 21 million people is a lot to just disappear. So many different familial connections and so on and so forth. 8,000 going to 5,000, knocking out 5,000, going to 3,000. That's a little more fudgeable. But once again, we just don't have good numbers, and we just can't really trust a lot of the numbers right now. So we're just dealing with what we have. Sal, the agorist, writes, can we talk about why you're passing a bill for $2 trillion and you're only giving $250 billion of it to the people who need it? And then they have Donald Trump, and I'm not sure why John Kerry, former Secretary of State, is here. And it says, screw you and die, you anti-American asshole. I think this is in reference to the one House member, Republican, who stood up and tried to vote against this bill. He tried to stall the bill. His general point was this right here. Yeah, we're giving about 3/4 of the bailout money to airlines and hotels and airplane companies and other people who are going to be hit badly by this. And it's great that we're helping them out, but you think we could get some shares, right? Boeing's CEO famously, before their stock took off, he said, we're not going to give the American people even a single share for bailing out our company. And don't call it a bailout. Boeing is very serious. They're very sensitive about bailouts. They don't like to be called bailouts. Corporate welfare, corporate bailouts. It's only the people that need welfare. It's only the people that need socialism, not corporations. This isn't corporation socialism. This is capitalism. This is the free market. You go out there and build your company, and if you have bad times and your company goes out of business, free market doesn't care. No, wait. We're saving everyone. This isn't the free market. What is this? Anyway, please give us a like and a share. We're up to 21 likes. We have about 51 people watching right now. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Just having a great time here on Saturday morning, checking out the news. We had some chess pieces, a little Fight Club reading. And later on, I'm going to be showing some of my international books from my amazing travels to Europe, which now seem even more fortuitous. I had the special opportunity to travel, and I'm not sure if we're going to have that in the future. So these books have become even more valuable, so I look forward to sharing them with you. And again, it's Saturday, so we're trying to have a little bit of a lighter show here today. Not so serious, but then again, these are serious times, right? So we really have no choice if we want to be fair and honest and accurate and cover what's actually happening, Here's a beautiful image. This is from the New York Times. As David Enrich writes, there's basically a Caravaggio painting on the cover of the New York Times, and we showed the New York Times the other day. They had that incredible graphic going all the way down their side column of the unemployment figures. And now, as you can see today, this is a picture, but it really does look more like a painting. You have the two medical workers on the left, slightly out of focus. A picture in the center might be the Virgin Mary or another woman wearing a headdress. Of course, the sick person in the center, not looking so good, and two other people, family members or helpers watching on with masks. Just a very moving and powerful photograph. Obviously, the New York Times thought so. They made it really big. They only have the one column. They didn't even do a very big headline. Plea for ventilators as Trump signs aid bill. They are entirely focused on the quality of this incredible picture. So let's just look at that for a second and drink some tea. There's a comment in the chat. They're saying maybe we should serial read a PKD. Might be fun to try the book club again. I had a book club, World Crypto Book Club. I think it was about 4 years ago or something like that. You can look. The videos are out there on YouTube. We did Snow Crash, and I think we did one other book that we didn't finish. So I think Neuromancer, Snow Crash and Neuromancer, William Gibson and Neil Stephenson. Great, like foundational science fiction for cypherpunk, really. Great stuff. But you can check that out, and you could even read along with us in the past. We had different things like how many days or how many pages we were on, what we were doing, and you could follow along, and then you could talk. And it was with my friend Nick back in the day. But then Nick's wife had a baby, and I didn't get to see old Nick very much anymore. So I hope he's doing well, though. I really enjoyed the book club. It was a fun idea. More of the best of the British Museum series from @MadBitcoins on Twitter. I'm also kind of trying to tweet these as kind of palate cleansers to kind of clean the thing out, because I know no one anywhere can stop talking about this thing, but maybe we can ignore it for just a little while. Here's looks like some Caesar coins, some Roman coins. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. You can tell it's his because it's got his face all over it. They have lots of coins at the British Museum. I just thought this was a nice picture of some. A classic, beautiful cash register. Looks like it's from the National Cash Register Company out of Dayton, Ohio. Just gorgeous everywhere, and really some Harry Potter looking font on the amount purchased. You'd think this is a prop from the TV shows, but this would have sat in a shop. This would have been the most important and most valuable thing in the shop. And it would have facilitated all commerce. It would track all the money. You'd be able to empty out at the end of the day. I mean, this was a big part of commerce, and as you can see, a very decorative cash register. Here's a different kind of cash register. This is a Barbie cash register from, I don't know, some kind of Barbie board game or something. It was in the money exhibit in the money section. I thought it was a nice piece, something worth highlighting. Look at the pink and the blue. The light colors used by Barbie in her credit card machine there. And finally, we have a very small picture of a Bitcoin. This is supposed to be a Casasius coin, but I think the museum removed the Casasius coin because of its incredible value, and they replaced it with one of these little plastic or metal little Bitcoins. But still, Bitcoin is represented in the money exhibit at the British Museum, exhibit sponsored by something like Chase Manhattan Bank. But they still managed to put in a little mention of our pal Bitcoin. So in normal times, I'd tell you to go to London and check it out at the British Museum. But gosh, it's closed like everything else. It can't go anywhere. So maybe someday we can all go to the British Museum again. It's a great place. Back to bad news. Italy has its worst day of the coronavirus pandemic with 919 deaths on Friday. So no good news there. Here's something distracted. Might lose us our ad rights. This is Sam Neill, actor from Jurassic Park and many other movies, singing a little bit of Radiohead's Creep. Maybe we'll skip ahead.
I don't belong here. So this butchering another song, just to encourage people to stay home and find something creative to do, even if it means ruining a Radiohead song. I love Radiohead so much. And I love that song. And it's for all the people like me that weren't in the first 15 and we weren't in the cheerleader squad. We just wanted to be special. Look, I know so many of us are afraid and anxious at the moment. But don't be afraid. Don't be anxious. We'll get through this thing. We'll probably be a bit tattered and torn at the end of it, but we will get through. And I know it's easy to spiral down into, what's the worst thing can happen. But I'm encouraging you to just spiral up and think, what's the best thing that can happen? What's going to happen at the end of this? We'll come out and the sky will be blue and we'll love each other. And things will be fine.
All right. Thank you, Sam Neill. Nice stuff. I like the little thing about not being on the cheerleading squad or the football team. And if you want to watch on the Mad Bitcoins Twitter, you can watch him sing more of Radiohead. Nice little performance by the actor Sam Neill there. So very cool. MN Health, by staying home for 2 weeks, we are slowing the spread of COVID-19 and giving our healthcare system the time it needs to prepare to care for people who are very sick. By staying home, we are buying time and saving lives. So it really does seem like we're doing nothing and we're just sitting around the house reading the books or watching TV or whatever you guys are doing to stay sane, maybe working on a puzzle or playing some board games, entertaining your kids, educating your kids, all kinds of things we could be doing right now. And it's not so bad to stay at home. I know different people have better or worse situations. Some people might be in a small apartment. They might be in a small apartment with people they don't like. There's all kinds of downsides to this. We just got to grin and bear it, right? We got to get through this. This is a tough time. You got to grit your teeth, but you just got to stay home. It's no fun. It's not exciting. I like staying home, but even I'm getting a little bored of it. I was thinking, man, I should go somewhere, do something. I realized there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. So that probably worked out. We were talking about this just a little bit earlier from The Telegraph. New coronavirus tests could come with a certificate allowing, let's see, where'd the link go? Oh, it's not working. New coronavirus tests could come with certificate allowing those who have recovered to escape lockdown. And this is just the beginning of what I was talking about with the need to prove that you're clean, to prove that when we get the vaccine, there's a possibility they might, I don't want to get into this, but I mean, again, there's a possibility that they might want to give you a tattoo or something that says you have the vaccine. You might prefer that. They might want to give you a little chip in your finger or something. You're not going to like that. I mean, I don't think you're going to like the tattoo either. They might want to give you a piece of paper, like a license that you'd have to carry around and like scan places to like go to the movies. Like only clean people could go to the movies. And it seems sci-fi and crazy and way off in the future, this kind of idea. But I think it's something we need to start thinking about now. I know you guys aren't going to like this. I know I don't like the idea of chipping everybody. But when I look at the problem and I say, how are we ever going to go to movies again? How are we ever going to go to malls? How are we going to go shopping and all these things? I'm afraid that we might have to chip and scan to get into Target, or you might have to show your ID, or you might have to scan your card. It's not what anyone wants, but we have to look at how are we going to control the second and third spread of this virus? How are we going to make people calm and confident again? I think I have it up here. We're working towards it. I have a picture from Hong Kong or it was from China or something, where they've reopened like a cafe, but half the tables in the cafe have like toilet paper over them because they're closed, and you have to sit far apart and you have to wear your mask, and there's all these rules now so that you can enjoy the cafe. And it wasn't like that before. So I think that, if we look at that and if we look at what would a richer version of that cafe look like, and you have to think at a richer version of the cafe, you would be showing your card. You would be able to take your mask off and breathe. Imagine the new thing to buy. Like the old thing to buy would be, if you had access to like a club or something, you had like a cool chair, you could go sit down. Like think about the airlines. A couple of times when I flew on the airlines, my friends were lucky enough to have access to one of those clubs, the lounges, right? Airplane lounge. And you'd go in there and the main features are like free food, free drinks, free magazines, free newspapers, and cool chairs that you can lay down in, right? It's pretty sweet airplane lounge thing. What does the airplane lounge of the future look like? Pods, right? You want your separate environment. You want your own clean air filter. You want some kind of a thing where you can see that the air is clean, like a little green glowing bracelet or something. That's the new luxury. The new luxury is you check the little breathing thing, you take your mask off, and you breathe for a little while by yourself before you get on the airplane or before you go to the whatever. The new luxury is clean air, is a safe environment. So you have to look at either we're going to pay for this, either we're going to have access controls, which I mean, yes, a chip is certainly more invasive. A tattoo's more invasive, but if you forget your little card at home, you're not going to be able to go to the movie. I mean, and as far as carrying around your card all the time, that's pretty much papers, please, right? We've pretty much gone back to a certain place in Germany where you always used to have your papers as well. Again, I don't see much of a way around this. We need to know if people are sick or not, right? It's gonna come up. Like right now, we're tiptoeing around it, but it's the kind of thing that'll just it'll slam shut. So this is our chance to talk about it. This is our chance to debate it, and hopefully, the key of the debates that I would like to have and the way that I like to discuss things is that I'm looking for a better solution. Just saying we can't do that, that's not good enough for me, because I still need to solve this problem of how are we going to go to movies? How are we going to go to casinos? How are we going to go to Target? How are we going to go to any store anymore? Are we going to wear big plastic bubbles around us? And we're certainly going to wear masks. So got to think about this. As Francis Coppola, who doesn't like Bitcoin and isn't named after the director, she even tagged Izzy Kaminska from the Financial Times, who doesn't like Bitcoin. But they both agree this is not as benign as it sounds. So this is your time to start talking about this. Oh, the guy's using insults and language in the chat. Ooh, impressive. But yeah, let's go to the chat. Let's hear your solutions, your suggestions. How are we going to have a clean environment where people can go out into the world again without having, say, very tight controls on everything? Everything. Let's see. A.R. Forgenson says, iScan tech is here. So that's true. We could have iris scanners. We could have other kind of biometric scanners that would recognize you. Then you could be confirmed, led into the movie theater. Certainly here in Las Vegas at the Wynn Casino, they actually have temperature scanners already. Not like invasive ones where you have to go up to a machine, but cameras that can just see the temperature, infrared cameras, whatever they are. So heat sensing cameras. So if you come into the Wynn Casino and you're bright red because you have a fever, they're probably going to come get you. In the past, they probably would have let that go by. But you have to think now, protecting their customers. Who's responsible if you get sick at the Wynn? Who's responsible if 30 people get sick at the movie theater? The movie theater company. It's a liability issue. We have a legalistic society here. When you go to the movies, you're kind of protected, right? It's their security. I don't know that they got rang up for this or anything, but in Colorado, when that guy went to the Batman movie and shot up the place, although the movie theater, this is, it's an act of God, it's a bizarre situation, it's not a normal occurrence. In some way, they're responsible. If you look at movie theaters after that, I think a lot of them started adding real security guards with guns, so on and so forth. Cameras, systems, emergency buttons, options, right? Options. And again, would have been great if we could have just had movie theaters like they were, and we didn't have to have security, or we didn't have to have cameras, or we didn't have to have these things. But when the situation changes, like that guy shooting up the Batman movie, or the other general tone of terrorism and suicide bombers and all these kind of things, think about Israel. Think about how Israel lives compared to the United States in a security situation, and think about 9/11. Think about how that changed us, and think about this virus as the virus of 9/11 that's also going to change us. And I agree with everyone who's pushing back against the chips and pushing back against the papers, please. We should push back against that, but we need an alternative. We need to push back and say, don't do that, do this, because they're going to have to do something. Something is going to have to be done. We're looking for a solution, and if we don't find the perfect solution, we're going to go whatever's lying around. And that's going to be this creepy totalitarian thing that we don't want. But it might work. There's the rub. Let's see. Nate Yort says, if you're recovered, you'll have antibodies. Recent testing is suggesting we can't get infected twice. So herd immunity would be the thing. Once everyone has these antibodies, everyone can go out again. We can just say that everything's fine, at least until the COVID virus mutates, and then we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. We do know the new information provided by scientists is that the virus is mutating slowly. This is very good. Previously, people thought it would mutate quickly, and we would need multiple versions of the vaccine. As it's mutating slowly, the one version of the vaccine should last for maybe even a couple years before the virus mutates. So herd immunity would work. We wouldn't need these tight controls. These tight controls could be a temporary thing. Maybe we could just use that piece of paper like a driver's license as a temporary thing. We'd have to have a license to eat in a restaurant. You have a license to eat to go to a movie theater. You have a license to go to a concert. I mean, a license to hang out in the park. I mean, obviously guys aren't going to like this, but don't know what else we can do. TaylorMade says, stop being a pussy. Yeah, but if it's infecting 100,000 people and it doubles in 3 to 4 days, that's 200,000. If it doubles again, 400,000. Like, if we're not wearing masks, if we're not staying home, if we're not socially distancing, we're not slowing down the spread of this thing. So if we ever want to go out into public again without starting a new round of infection, we're going to need to change our habits. So I don't know if this means wearing gloves, wearing masks all the time, not crazy about it. I don't know if this means showing your papers before you go in the restaurant. I don't know if it means scanning your little card or scanning your chip or something. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to find out. Ricky D says most people won't be reinfected within a certain window. I hope so. Chat. It's so hard to read. Here we go. Inspiring formulas. Stop trying to control the environment and there'll be a clean environment. That's an interesting theory. He also said movies, casinos, and Target are overrated. I agree with that, but that's economically crushing, right? Like if we don't go to movies anymore and we just watch them at home on Blu-ray or Netflix or whatever, movie theaters go out of business. I mean, certainly when it came to, I was like, well, a concert would be pretty cool. That might be worth putting on the mask and the gloves and the eye masks and everything to go out for. But you know, I just don't know. I mean, you know, sure, we're thinking too much about this. Maybe it's all about nothing, and that'd be great. I'd love it if we're back in movie theaters in 6 months, not caring at all, spitting on the ground again, all the things that people used to do. That'd be great. I'm not sure of that. Ryan says, how do we go to the church and then go to the casino? Well, they also have churches inside casinos. You can get married at the casino. Jennifer says we should discuss this, but not that it's inevitable. She thinks I'm overestimating the virus. Partially, yes. But partially, this is kind of a warm-up, right? Like, let's say the virus is a dud and the death rate is really low and we all dodged a bullet. And we can look back and say, it was no problem. It didn't even matter that they didn't order gloves and ventilators for a whole month. It didn't matter, right? That would be great. I'm 100% behind that. But obviously the spread of this virus, the nature of it, its ability to take down our whole economy is not going to be ignored by the rest of the planet. There's going to be other viruses, either just from nature or nature with a little bit of help. So we have to say the new thing to fight, we organize our society behind an enemy principle, right? At least if we look at the last 50 to 100 years, the Cold War, the enemy was the Soviets, the terrorism, the enemy was the Al-Qaeda, these other people. We look at it now, if we reorganize our society, the new enemy is viruses. It's already happening at Amazon. It must have been the second day of this thing when Bezos was talking up hygienic commerce. Hygienic commerce. They're going to clean the boxes. They're going to have their employees be clean. They're going to have their employees wear masks. They're going to have the warehouses be clean. They're going to scan the warehouses. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to create a series of things to make you feel safe about receiving your Amazon package. And if they're hygienicking up the Amazon line, they're going to have to hygienic up the whole world. What's the difference between Amazon and a movie theater? I don't want a dirty package, and I don't want to go to a dirty movie theater. Like, these are very well connected. Every industry is going to have to change. And it's not just a cosmetic thing of adding the word hygienic. You're going to actually have to do something. You have to test it. You have to scientifically prove it. There's going to be certifications, the way that we do food clean. This restaurant has good cleaning habits. They wash their hands and they clean their toilets. They get an A. we're going to have disease habits. We're going to have hygienic disease control habits, and we're going to judge the places we go based upon their rating. And bad rated places are going to go out of business. So it's pretty big. Honey says we should switch to the Venus Project, which I think is a cool idea. It's kind of like Star Trek The Next Generation. No one needs money. Everything's provided for everyone, and we can all work on our own projects to try to improve humanity. It sounds great, but my problem with the Venus Project has always been it lacks bootstrapping. Too many ideas are these, bubble boy ideas. You let them outside, and they instantly die from the environment. They only exist inside a vacuum. They only exist inside a simulation, right? They can't actually exist in the real world. The Venus Project's a lot like that. There's no bootstrapping. Next Generation, same thing. According to the history of Star Trek, a TV show, the whole Star Trek thing comes out of the eugenics wars. So it is a bad thing that turns into a good thing. But again, that's just a TV show. It's not really a roadmap to follow. If I wanted to understand or believe in the Venus Project, I'd have to see better bootstrapping, a better plan to convert the world to what they want, rather than just hoping for it. So, but again, they work hard. They have good ideas. It's positive. At least it's a positive thing. And pause, get some water here. Hold on just a sec. There's a question earlier, what kind of tea am I drinking? For a little while there, I was into the British black tea, the English breakfast tea. I thought it was great with soy milk or almond milk, something like that. Not a real milk guy myself. But now I'm drinking green tea again, because you don't need to add sugar, which is really good. And I got a 1,000 pack from Costco. So I'm good for a while. I can even double up, a bigger glass, more tea bags, more tea. So what kind of tea are you drinking, or coffee? Let us know in the chat. And we're going to catch up soon. We're going to scroll through this. We're going to get back to the front of the chat again. All right, let's see. Moonshine Fuel says that the mutate and change, people will eventually overcome it as a whole. So we're also hoping for herd immunity after the vaccine's out there, after the virus is weakened down. Jennifer says you could sign releases to go to the movie, that the insurance companies are actually taking on the risk, Derek says. So that is true. They'll have to insure the movie people. Maybe you'll have to just sign a release. Eventually, I'm sure it'll be part of just buying a ticket. You'll just kind of verbally agree, or you'll check some box. It'll be a formality. But it's definitely going to be a part of the future of all of our interactions. Imagine working in a restaurant. Busboys, waiters, chefs, they generally don't get paid sick leave. That's going to have to change. Think about up and down the whole system. Some cashier doesn't get paid sick leave, is pretty much broke, has to go to work sick. That's the person who gets you infected next. So it takes up and down the whole tree. We're going to have to take care of everyone better if we want the whole world to get better. Moonshine Fuel says the human body is excellent at healing and overcoming things if relatively healthy. So we'll just have to all start working out, eating better, and getting healthy if we're going to fight this virus. Taylor says this is an overreactionary broadcast. So there you go. Nate York says 80% of people do not get any symptoms, and antibodies only take 60% for herd immunity. So that sounds good. That sounds positive on our goals of establishing herd immunity. Remember, this is a brand new virus. Humanity's never had it before. Unlike, say, the flu or anything else, or chickenpox, we've had it hundreds of thousands of times. We've developed antibodies. So we are just starting with this one. So we have 0 antibodies. We don't have any years. We have like X hundred years of this antibody, and 500 years, and thousands of years, and all these kind of things that we've been, converting and changing. So it's interesting stuff. Oculus says there's 8 strains of the virus. Again, it is mutating slowly, but it is indeed. Martin says he sees what I'm saying, but we have Trump, the worst president, to implement something like that. It is specifically a bad time to be doing this. I mean, Jeremy was mocking me the other day saying, oh, you're going to put Trump in charge of giving out the virus giving out the vaccine and giving out the cure and helping people and making it by force and so on and so forth. But we have to work with what we have. This is what we have. And there's still, while we haven't seen it, there was maybe one day where he was up there saying that he was a wartime president, where he was taking it very seriously. There's still hope. They could still turn this around. They could get serious about it. They did activate the Defense Production Act. I'm in favor of that. They've got, General Motors is going to work on ventilators. I don't know how long it's going to take, et cetera, et cetera. But things are turning. Like, I hope so. I hope they're moving around. I don't like the new thing where he's fighting with the governors and not giving them supplies based upon their personal relationships. That's not good for the people that live in Minnesota or Michigan or any of these states. It's not the way the system's supposed to work. But we have to work with what we have. We have to hope that what we have improves. We're not completely pessimistic. Talk about Vegas. Derek says, what's going on here? Unfortunately, I personally don't have that much information. I'm staying inside. Generally, Nevada, all non-essential businesses in the state are closed. So we have grocery stores, drug stores, dispensaries, gas stations, things like that are still open. Hospitals, of course. There was a report just yesterday of the outbreak status. I think there was around 400 to 500 people officially that had been infected by COVID virus in Nevada, in Las Vegas. And I believe there are around 10 to 15 deaths. So it's just barely getting started. It's not quite at an outbreak level. As far as I know, everyone's staying home. I haven't been outside to verify it. Haven't been to the grocery store in a couple of weeks. Just eating off whatever we got left in the supply, top ramen and tuna and canned food and that kind of thing. So hopefully everyone's staying inside. There's an interesting event in my neighborhood. The outdoor construction is continuing. They're putting in a park. They're going to plant grass. Pretty much if they don't plant it now, they won't be able to plant it for the whole year. So I suppose that's essential. A lot of other building construction things are probably still going on if they stay far apart. I think California has a similar rule where you can still build things right now, which is causing confusion, as a lot of people who build things still have to go to work and might not have masks and might stand close to each other and so on. So it's quiet here. All the gambling machines are off by order of the governor. So even at the supermarkets, where, as you might know, we have slot machines at the supermarkets in Las Vegas. We also have slot machines at the gas stations. Those are all off as well. So it's this amazing... I haven't gone down there to look at it. All the casinos are closed. I'm not, looking to be adventurous and exploring right now. I'm staying home. I think that's the best for everybody. But just to think about it, the silence. You've probably been to a casino. They're never quiet. There's always like ding, 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 all these kind of things going on. Right now, all of Vegas is silent. The entire thing, the entire state, even Reno too. No gambling anywhere. So it's pretty weird here. And I'm staying home, walking the dog, eating the food, talking to you guys, reading a book, watching a movie. I need to stretch more. They said, I don't know if we're going to get to the story, but Hong Kong, the thing they're buying now is dumbbells and yoga mats. People are staying home and they're trying to make little home gyms, little ways to get fit. It said at first they started buying Nintendo Switches and electronics gear and so forth, but now people are circling back, focusing on their health, things that they can do at home. Nate says we're always going to have the coronavirus. It'll always be mutating and that we've always had it. So maybe we won't have to do all those things. Maybe we don't need a clean environment. Let's see. Where were we? Still trying to get your opinion here on the chat. And again, everyone can have their opinion. Just say it in the chat. It's fine. Let's see. Honey says the exponential growth factor becomes real to people after it's too late. I would agree with that. Human beings don't usually deal with exponential growth. Like I've said, usually around here, we're looking at it as a good thing. If your startup goes viral, if your video goes viral, it's a good thing. And it's not anymore. I mean, we're in that part on the U.S. chart where it goes straight up. which for the price of Bitcoin or maybe the users on Facebook or Twitter, those kind of things, that's an amazing period of a startup's life. You're just growing every day. You're adding new servers. You're desperate to keep up with demand, except that our desperation is to keep up with a virus, and our demand is death. So it's a tough time. Ryan wants a license to ill. Yeah, Beastie Boys. What's the time? It's time to get ill. What's the time? It's time to get ill. That's not so good. I don't want that. Let's see. Sorry, guys. We got behind in the chat again. Trying to keep this going. Let's see. Beastie Boys, you got to fight for your right to party. Martin says Trump has totalitarian vibes, and that's a lot of what I'm hearing with people is if we give them the power to do some kind of thing, that they're never going to give that power back. Totally vital argument. I'm on the other side. I would be more, let's kill the virus, no matter what we have to do. But we have to find, hopefully, a spot in the middle. But it's also possible with the virus that there is no middle. Like you have to sterilize. You have to eliminate it. We have to get the vaccine. Otherwise, it's just a rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Like the iceberg's coming. Oculus says we're up to 112,500 infected in the U.S. So it's starting to go. Ricky D says there's that many infected in New York City alone. No one is tested unless they need medical attention. So if anything, the numbers we're getting are too small. The numbers could actually be worse. There is another side to this. People are hoping that so many people are infected that less people are actually dying, and the actual mortality rate of this is lower than we think. So it might just be a disease that sends people home for 10 days, makes them feel like someone's stomping on their chest, occasionally needing ventilators, losing their taste and smell, having a cough, having a headache, feeling weak. I mean, it's still a crushing disease, even if it doesn't kill, right? Like if it spreads through your office isn't going to get any work done that week. Your whole schedule is going to fall apart. It's still a big deal, and we're just going to have to see. We don't know, and there's no way of knowing till we go through the wall, get to the other side of this thing, then look back and we say, oh, it was really bad, or oh, it wasn't so bad. We have to, Schrodinger's cat. We have to open the box. So we'll keep an eye on it, keep seeing where it's going, and again, if we're all wrong on this, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fantastic. But if we're all right on this, we're going to need more fucking gloves. We're going to need more ventilators, right? And there's no way around it. And even if we had more, we could donate them. We could give them to the rest of the world. We could keep moving them around, keep helping people. Let's see. Inspiring Formula says, if it's all about nothing, then it's all about how nothing was turned into something. And I agree with that. If it's nothing, we need to figure out, why we got fooled so bad. If it's something, we need to figure out why we didn't react faster, better ways to react in the future, ways to have warehouses full of gloves and masks, warehouses full of ventilators. Even if it's a hoax, having those warehouses for next time would be better. If it's a real virus and it's killing people, having those warehouses for next time would be better. Either way, I'm seeing a lot more stockpiling, a lot more preparation for this kind of thing, because it's so much cheaper to prepare, not during the crisis. Like, it's really, really cheap. Like what we're spending right now with the crisis, for example, having the casino closed for a minute or having the casino closed for a day, astronomically expensive. We're losing tons and tons of money. Same thing for every other business everywhere. So in comparison, having this preventative care, wait a minute, we're doing the argument for universal health care, aren't we? It's the same argument. The sick care for poor people, universal health care, having extra gloves and preparedness for pandemics. This is all about having a society that protects people and a society that puts people first above corporations. So we're going to have to look at that, because doing it the other way makes the corporations unsafe, makes the rich unsafe. The cashier at Walmart who can't take a day off because they're sick now affects you, because your whole family could get sick from shopping there. And maybe you're saying you won't shop at Walmart. You'll shop somewhere nicer, someone that has, temperature checking and cards and chips and is checking their people. And now you're contributing to the whole thing just because you want your family to be safe. So really it is. We're all connected. Universal healthcare, preventive medicine, preventative pandemic action. We're all talking about the same thing, protecting people. So we'll have to see. BTC Moon Guy says, do you typically ignore the Bitcoin price? After several years, I still can't go long without checking the price. I need to find my Zen somehow. I don't have any good information on that. I can say when I was officially ignoring the price, I stopped making actions and I didn't, sell to protect myself or buy more or whatever it was. So that's difficult. Meanwhile, when I first started, certainly I was looking at the price all the time, and that'll drive you crazy too, in a different way. And so I have kind of a happy medium, and I think I check it every once in a while. I don't expect it to move very much, so that's pretty nice. Like I don't see it moving that often. It's a lot more in its range, but then every once in a while you have that day like the other day where the damn thing went down 50%. And sure, I wish I'd looked on that day. So I would say try to cut it back to maybe a couple times a day. Do it in the morning, do it in the evening. Maybe when you have lunch or something, set it to a meal. But yeah, try to look less, even if you don't have that many or whatever. It'll just drive you crazy. But and that's another reason why it's so hard to trade Bitcoin, because it doesn't close at night. The stock market right now, if you're a stock guy, yeah, they have after hours trading and you can track that. But generally you can take the weekend off. You can have a nice deep breath and take the weekend off. But the Bitcoin traders can't. Bitcoin things keep going. So when you sleep at night, you have to decide whether you're going to sleep in fiat or in Bitcoin. And that's a huge decision, and you have to make it every day. So the idea of trying to trade this thing and trying to be on it 24/7 stressed me out, and I wasn't too into it. So I mainly just let it ride, which is not the best either. So some kind of happy medium. You need to find something in the middle, right? Moderation is the key, like the Greeks said, right? The golden mean. Yeah. Some weird fan noises going on, maybe some work going on outside or something. It's not as quiet as it should be in here, but hopefully you guys can't hear it. Jennifer thinks we should focus on the economy. Honey wants to live in hygienic boxes. Derek says robots are sterile. That's smart. AR agrees, and easier to keep sterile. Spoiler alert, I think they're going to have a McDonald's that's all robot. Just a McDonald's in a box. You just come up to the box, order your burger. The machine cranks out a bunch of stuff. It's a big sealed metal container, and your burger just comes out. So that could be the end of fast food workers. In that way, you wouldn't have to give them health care because you would remove them from the situation. Same thing for cashiers. Removing cashiers from the situation gives you less chance of infection. Now you just have to worry about touching everything. So everyone's going to wear gloves. We were kind of questionable of it. It seemed like another stupid hologram technology, but the holographic buttons in the Chinese elevator are looking pretty smart right now. If you think about contactless payment, holding your card up, making it go bing, not touching the card, although many people still touch the contact thing, that could be good. A lot of these technologies, RFID chips, putting them in everything, having that legendary now, I've been talking about it for a million years, but that idea that you could go to Walmart or Target, fill your basket up with stuff. Your basket tells you how much the cost of the items are in it. You pay with your card. Maybe you don't even have to take it out of your pocket, and you just roll your basket across the scanner, and the scanner scans everything in your basket at once. That kind of thing needs to be rolled out now. We have much more reason for this. So, Andrew Yang, basic income. We've got huge potential problems here with the robots taking our jobs because they're cleaner. Dun, dun, dun. Derek says all these barrier to entry are further consolidating power into corporations. I agree with that. There's an article, I didn't pull it up, but it was about how they're trying to save the restaurant industry in Los Angeles, the small restaurants. They don't want to come out with this with only McDonald's and Burger King. But if you think about the kind of hygienic standards that we're going to have, as well as the risk and insurance liability in selling people and serving people food, only the big corporations are going to be able to deal with. Like Derek said, these barriers to entry are going to keep all small restaurants, all small movie theaters, all small mom and pop type anythings out of the business environment. So it could be very, very, very disastrous to small businesses in ways that we aren't even seeing yet, in addition to the current having to stop and having to pay your rent and things. Silver Miner says he'd rather lick coronavirus off the pavement. Well, we might get our chance. Honey says we're living in the biggest shift since the Industrial Revolution. And she agrees the concept of the Venus Project could use some tweaking. I agree. And again, I like the idea. I like having anything positive. And I guess, obviously, to say, where did I hear about the Venus Project? I think it was the movie Thrive, kind of a conspiracy theory movie made by the guy who his family ran Procter & Gamble. So he's kind of a rich guy. And he chose, instead of working on what he thinks is an evil project, he chose to try to expose the evil project. And he's kind of a hippie guy. So pretty cool guy, really cool movie, Thrive. I think it was also the, might have not been Thrive that did the Venus Project. It might have been the other one. I'm not seeing its name right now. But there is another kind of a conspiracy movie. And the whole second half was about the Venus Project. And what I really liked about it is often you watch these conspiracy movies and they just make you sad. The enemy is all powerful. The enemy is all connected. The enemy knows everything that's going to happen before it happens. So you're powerless and weak and can do nothing. And what I liked about this movie is when it got to the Venus Project, at least there was something to look forward to. While the bootstrapping wasn't there, and I don't see a path to it, at least at the end they had something positive to show you, a world without conspiracy. So that'd be cool. I'd like to see it. Let's see. General Byzantine says, variety is anti-fragile. Big social engineering projects like Venus generally aren't. And that's another reason why I probably thought it would never work and wasn't too enamored with it. We're looking for decentralized solutions here, right? Ad hoc, things that are flexible, things that really behave more like a virus, more like a group. You could drop this group in and they could change things around them. That kind of a thing. Local organization, small cells, like a human body made up of cells that eventually could connect together to form a larger organization. These are all the same things. Ryan says green tea rocks. Cut it with some mint tea. That might be a nice idea. Do one green tea packet, one mint tea packet. Really mix it up. I know I used to have green tea that had mint inside it. Ooh. And I had some other green tea that had like blueberry inside it or something. So there's a lot of interesting green teas out there. SKK is checking out Earl Grey. I tried to get into Earl Grey, of course, Captain Picard. But no, I just couldn't get it. It's not the taste for me. Maybe sugar or milk or almond milk would help that out. Jennifer says, Michael Tellinger addresses voluntary cashless integration with governments. That would be a good use of her quarantine. Nice. Check it out. They say COVID-19 is a weapon of mass destruction. It's definitely been bad. Moonshine Fuel reminds us of The Simpsons and says that the future will be like Mr. Burns in his limo, terrified of rolling down his window to a passerby. It is interesting to see how the rich people once were able to use their money and so on and so forth to have this amazing isolation and all of this power, even the power to jet set and go country to country and travel all around. And now the world outside has changed and the virus is everywhere. And unless we change the world to make things better for everyone, it's not going to be that great for the rich either. Unless, of course, they have a complete stratification. If we split into two societies, one society still bouncing around, living it up, and the other society just petrified of the virus everywhere and different kinds of virus and different kinds of, virus warfare and all kinds of things on the ground. It'd be very, very strange. So we'll have to see how it goes. Derek says, how much is the delay for the show? I think it's 5 to 10 seconds. It's not very significant, but yeah, the chat does trail a little bit behind, even with our best efforts. But we can do some calls in a little bit. Hi Animal says, Thomas, can you give your insight on the halvening and how Bitmain having access to the miners will affect the market? I'm not sure about the Bitmain part on the second half. Bitmain really isn't that much of a player or a conspiracy anymore. It seems like it's kind of winding out. There are some other minor manufacturers in the market now, so it's starting to space out. As far as the halving, definitely I think it's happening. It's unstoppable. It's not going to be pushed back or held for a year or delayed for the coronavirus. The halving is happening. For those of you who aren't too into Bitcoin or just tuning in now, what happens is the Bitcoin is deflationary. So there's less and less Bitcoin all the time. The theory being that they'll be more and more valuable because there's less and less of them. This deflation is scheduled into Bitcoin. About every 4 years or every 210,000 blocks, this halving occurred. Originally, the Bitcoin block reward, the reason that you mine Bitcoin, was about 50 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. It seems astronomical now, right? By the time I had joined Bitcoin, it had already gone through the first halving down to 25 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. Still astronomical, right? Then we had about 4 years ago, the second halving. It went from 25 Bitcoins to 12.5 Bitcoins. I was there in San Francisco. We had a party with a Bitcoin meetup. We had an open bar. Everyone could, it was an inexpensive bar, but it was open. And everybody had a great time, and we didn't worry about viruses at all. And we were just hanging out in the garden behind the bar with the balconies and the barbecues and people eating meat that had been cooked right there. Wasn't clean at all. And everything was normal. Everything was normal. So that was 4 years ago. And what happened was the price of Bitcoin went up a little, then it went down. Then maybe 6 months to a year after the halving, it went crazy up, right? So it was fine. One of the fears about the halving is that because the miners are now getting half as much, they'll be getting 6.25 instead of 12.5 every 10 minutes. If they want to make the same amount of money that they were making before, presumably it might not even be a want. They might even need to make that kind of money to cover their power costs and their equipment costs. The price of Bitcoin essentially needs to double, right, to keep justifying the miners' investment. And last time it did. It more than doubled, right? The miners were fine. This time, everyone was expecting that. I think a lot of people's investment theses were all about holding on till the halving. And, so far, I mean, I'm sticking with it, mostly. I wish I didn't, but so it goes. It's kind of an all or nothing strategy at this point. But because of the environment we're in right now with the virus and the political environment and
there is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
And that thing too, people aren't sure about the halving. I don't think it's taken for granted anymore that the price will go up. I think there's a fear that the price won't go up and the miners won't be able to continue mining Bitcoin. We might see a reduction, certainly not a total reduction. I mean, we're going to keep going. But we might see, 20, 30% of the miners have to drop out because of costs, which is good for all the other miners. I mean, and then they can ramp up. So it's very uncertain right now. I mean, I could lie to you and tell you I know exactly what's going to happen, and people do. I mean, I do have exclusive access to a very unique prediction device here. This is the Bitcoin Magic 8-Ball, and I can ask it one question for you. I will ask it, will the price of Bitcoin be higher for the halving? Will it double? Will it satisfy the miners? Will they be able to keep mining? Here we go. Hear that sound. Reply hazy. Try again. Even the ball has a sense of humor sometimes. So we'll try to ask it again another time. But thank you, Hi Animals, for the question about Bitcoin. I really do like talking about Bitcoin. There used to be enough news to talk about Bitcoin all the time. But in general, I do think that Bitcoin is connected to everything else and that we can't have Bitcoin alone in a vacuum. That's why when the total market crashed, because everyone risked off, they all went into cash, they all were afraid of investing for a little while because of the virus fear, Bitcoin went down too. So we are connected to other things. Right now, it looks like Bitcoin's decoupling again, going its own way. But again, if the market went down again, we could see another big crash. The same way, if the market crashed up, that money could flow into Bitcoin as well. So it's very difficult to predict the future. Almost impossible, I'd say. Let's keep going. Momentum and exponential growth is no good to humans. It's only good for videos and startups. Let's see. Nate York says I would say it's no longer true that we have zero antibodies. We do have antibodies now because the people who have recovered have antibodies. They're even working on some cases where they could take the antibodies from that person and put them into another person, or maybe even take the antibodies, clone the antibodies, make more of them, and put them in many people. Who knows? I think it's great. We are definitely working on it, but the situation is changing, so I need to update my language to the current situation. General Byzantine says, you know what would be cool? A mesh network node plus Lightning network node to support it running on old routers. Make Bitcoin and internet truly resilient. And that would be a cool project. I know a lot of internet routers, you can install your own software. You can make your own firmware. So someone could take that and transform all of the old Linksys routers into mesh network Lightning Bitcoin nodes. Sounds cool. Looks like General Byzantine has a project now. You didn't know you were volunteering. Yeah, we definitely have the vaccine. We have the antibodies. Hopefully, like Nate's saying, we can do tests on the antibodies and we won't even need the vaccine. Maybe we can just give everybody the antivirus. I agree with Ricky that COVID-19 is related to SARS virus. I don't know that much more about it. It's a respiratory virus, so they're definitely in the same category. And I think parts of the SARS virus might be inside of the COVID-19 virus, but I'm not going to speak on that scientifically. If I had an article or something, I would definitely read it and tell you more. When the flu is introduced into new populations, they drop too. It's normal for new viruses to have a high kill rate. I agree with that, Jennifer. It's definitely the way it's happening. I agree with Jennifer here as well. She says she can't deal with the fighting with the governors. And it really is, conservative or liberal, you love Trump, you don't love Trump. Fighting with the governors is a bad look. Not organizing the national federal response in the government. That story we had the other day where the state governments were bidding against each other for ventilators, driving up the price, not increasing the supply of ventilators. So it would be a lot better, it'd make a lot more sense for all 50 states to act as one. Then they don't have to drive up the price. Then we just need someone nationally who can then say, okay, these ventilators go here, these ventilators go here, directing the thing like we did during the war, like we did during wartime. Like this is all, that's why we have the act. That's why we created it, so on and so forth. Let's see. It's the same as the flu as we have similar, I don't know, touch that. AR says Colorado dispensaries are still open. They have drive-up service, so that's cool. I've heard that here in Vegas as well, although I don't know that they still have same-day service. I think you have to order the day before now. Not that big a deal. Silver Miner says that hydroxychloroquine seems to cure it. Trump is trying to get it out there. The experts wants to drag it out over 18 months. They're using it in Korea. It seems to be flattening the infection rate. Partially, I'd say that the Korean infection rate is also being flattened by their use of gloves and their use of tests. In South Korea, if someone has the virus, they find them, they test them, they ask them everyone else they came in contact with, then they go get all those people, test all those people. And this strategy of really chasing down the virus to its source, isolating anyone who's infected, testing as many people as you can, I think that's the secret to South Korea's success. As far as hydroxychloroquine, I agree it does seem to be a treatment. They're mixing it with 2 or 3 other very high-powered medicines to treat people who have the disease. Treatment is good. Treatment helps people who already have it. A vaccine or the antibodies would help prevent people from getting it. So I think we're going to need both sides of it. I think the way to do a treatment, though, I disagree with the way the president introduced it. Introducing it publicly like that makes people hoard it, makes it harder to test it because we can't get a hold of it anymore to test it. And if it's not a successful drug, it could have false hopes. And if it's an untested drug, it could make people sick unintentionally, unintended consequences. So I don't know about 18 months. I hope we could speed it up faster than that. But I would I would just kind of side with the scientists. I think we need to test things before we roll them out massively. And I think that he could have talked about it in an internal meeting. I think it's fine for him to be very excited in internal meetings and to tell his people he wants to work on it. But I think it's way more productive to get a bunch of it, test it, verify it works, then make a bunch of it, then tell people about it. I think the telling people step I would put later in the stack because of the way that the outcomes are. But yeah, I hope it works. I hope it's good. I'm not against it at all. I was against the way he rolled it out. Inspiring Formula says they should bring back Supermarket Sweep. Oh, that was a great show. Ricky D says they are. They're remaking it. It's a good show. It's a show all about the prices of things at grocery stores. And at the end of the store, you got to do like a little, you got to run through the store and grab everything. They had a similar program for kids where you got to go to Toys R Us and have like a shopping spree. You could buy everything in the store. So it was pretty fun. But it's interesting now that if you watched a show about shopping, you can't even really go shopping, even in America. I mean, you could go to the grocery store and I'll bet it's super creepy and people are stocking up and there's empty shelves and they're wearing gloves and masks. I'd rather not. I'd rather just imagine the grocery stores the way they were as long as I can. Jennifer thinks it's weird. There's slot machines at the supermarket. They're also at the gas stations. I mean, they're in a little room. Like it's on the other side of the check stands. It's like the way they have like, they'd have a bank or they'd have a photo counter. I guess not anymore, but in the old days they'd have a photo counter. And yeah, they've got a little room with some slot machines. And they're, poker, video poker, all that kind of stuff too. I don't know. I don't like to admit it, but yeah, I think it's for people that are addicted to gambling and that have to get some action on their way to the grocery store, and they have to get some action. They have them at CVS, at the drugstores too, and they also have them at the gas stations. So I can't imagine wanting that action so bad that you're like filling up your gas and then you go inside and you're like, I'm going to play $20 on this machine and then go out. I don't know. I guess they could. I mean, people like action. I'm not the right kind of person to explain gambling to you, but other people tell me they put the $20 in and they feel like they're going to win and that this is worth it even if they don't win. For me, I don't like playing a game that's unfair. I feel like I'm getting ripped off, right? I want to play a fair game. If I lose a fair game, it's okay. I lost, But yeah, I just don't like the idea of playing unfair games. So. Let's see. Ryan says we need Tai Chi and Chai Tea. That's funny. I just saw it in the chat. It was a Zeitgeist, not Thrive, that showed me the Venus Project. It was Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist also had that really interesting opening where they talked about things like the flood story of Noah, that there were many different societies that all had a flood story. And like the Jesus story, the guy who comes back from the dead 3 days later, many different societies all had the back from the dead 3 days later type thing. So pretty interesting stuff out there in that Thrive movie. And of course, it's also very, 9/11 conspiracy theory stuff. So it's up to you if you want to check out Thrive, or you could just check out the second half about the Venus Project. Again, you don't often see a positive conspiracy theory movie. So I think that was laudable. If you don't have disposable drugs or disposable gloves, you can wash and dry them. They say Washington is 3 weeks from the peak. Let's see. You want the energy. Byzantine says, by the time the USA wants to sell ventilators, no one will want or need them. So, well, maybe nobody in this country, but I'd be glad if we could sell them or donate them to South Africa or India, and just in general stationing them all over for the potential second and third wave outbreaks. I would just like to be more prepared in the future. It costs a lot less to be prepared than to have these kind of sacrifices. So, Honey says we should all have access to hazmat gear. Much in the same way in Switzerland, everyone serves in the military. Everyone has a rifle in their house. I think in the future, all Americans are going to have full hazmat gear in their house, boxes of gloves, boxes of masks, maybe even subsidized and provided by the federal government. That's a nonsense hope. we're going to pay far out the ass for them. Hopefully the prices won't be gouging, but I think, yeah, every American's going to waste a bunch of their own personal money on these kind of protective gear. Or we could just nationalize it and give it to everybody. But whatever. At least they didn't get Louis Anderson to host Supermarket Sweep. He'd eat all the prizes. Oh, inspiring formulas, cold-blooded. He's a good comedian, though. I feel bad for Louis Anderson. His weight has kind of overtaken his comedy. Let's see. Nate York says, what you just said about rebuilding society, having one that puts people first, is what he hopes will glean from this whole situation. I agree with that. And in general, like when I think about computers, I think about user input and how valuable it is. And that with all the things we can do with the computers, all the like serious nuts and bolts, we can never replicate human input, whether it's a human writing a story or drawing a picture or putting all these windows together to make a TV show. That human input is what is so unique. And that's why I used to be so bummed and disturbed that we had all these computers that programs weren't very good. You know, they wouldn't save your work. They wouldn't auto-save your work. They would just say, don't save instead of delete. Now it says delete. They warn people. They're like, yeah, don't save isn't enough. Delete, remove, or even just the idea of saving all this human input. I think the same way about society. All this other stuff we can mass produce. We can always make a new assembly line. We can always make more robots. Even to some degree, we can regrow forests. You know, we can replant things. We can bring things back. But what we can't recreate is this human input. My thoughts, your thoughts, somebody else's thoughts, their actions, all the things that we do. That's the really unique and exciting things about this life or this simulation or whatever we're in. And we need to value it more. And it depends on your society and depends on, and I know in China they have a lot of people, they value people less because of that. Maybe, you know, not officially, but same kind of thing. Russia, other large countries, lots of people. But we just generally need to overcome that. We need to think every person's valuable, every person's unique, and every person deserves, you know, to live as, you know, reasonably. But again, this is complicated. There's ups and downs. There's different philosophical ways of looking at this. We could go back and forth. But I agree with Nate. I hope that people realize that we should rebuild society and put people first rather than corporations. General says, what's the use of universal health care if people stay at home and don't spread the virus? What's the use of any health care? Don't start thinking about this. But yeah, if you needed any kind of other hospital treatment right now, it would be a really bad time for it. So let's all not get sick and not have anything burst. Deep breaths, do your yoga, do your calm concentration, do your meditation. Let's get through this because, yeah, we can't go out. AR says it sounds like they're going to claw the people's bailout money back at tax time. I definitely think you're going to be responsible for paying taxes on the bailout money. I imagine they'll classify it as income. And yeah, they'll give you 100% of it and they'll take 25% back or whatever it is at tax time. So not great. But again, it's the government. They don't know how to do anything else. It's what they do. I don't know if the banks and the Boeing and everyone else is going to have to pay back their money. I don't know if they're going to have to do it in the same way. They're hoping Bitcoin soars in 6 months. Jennifer did crypto trading for a minute, and she wasn't sleeping anyway. That's one way to do it. Inspiring Formulas is checking regularly the price for the buy the dip below 4,000. We got pretty close to there the other night. It was quick, violent V recovery. We went down, we went back up. There was a wedge. There was a possibility. And again, if you had your buys set, you'd seem like a crazy man 6 months or a year ago setting a buy at 4K. But no, if you had a buy set at 4K, you could have nailed it. You could have sold it at 6K, maybe even 8K. But then again, I don't know how you time the tops and the bottom of all that. Maybe just sell percentages, sell 10%, sell 30%, try to succeed on some of it. But yeah, timing those tops and the bottoms, that's stressful. Let's see, removing cashiers and fast food workers. The AI is just trying to help. We haven't been looking at this idea positively enough. It's a good thing. Ricky D says the touch screens in fast food places are gross. There definitely has to be cleaning those more. We're going to see a lot more cleaning regimes, a lot more. Think about that card in the bathroom that says the last time this bathroom was cleaned. And now think about one of those on every table in McDonald's. Think about every restaurant, every corner, like how often was it cleaned? How is it cleaned? What is used? Think about cleaning brands like Lysol. They might have brand name, this McDonald's is Lysol clean, and you'll go in and it'll smell like a hospital. I really think that if we want to be clean, that's where we're going to go. And yes, there's no way mom and pop stores are going to be able to compete with that level of cleanliness and that level of branding, and branding making people feel safe, making them feel clean. It's going to be tough. Honey says they're going to be Whole Foods auto pay. Amazon has that shop where you're supposed to be able to grab the stuff and walk right out. That's going to be very popular. Once again, those Amazon people, they're thinking. AR would rather touch filthy money than public touchpads. That's good. Someone else mentioned the Amazon store in the chat. That I just thought of it. Great minds think alike. Inspiring Formulas doesn't know of anything in a fast food joint that isn't gross, especially the fryers. Fryers are really gross. And even so, at McDonald's, they do a good job. They clean those things every day. They dump out the oil, put new oil in, but still super gross. Let's see. Digital payments. Let's see. A little water here. Survival Bro says, elderberry fights the virus. Drink tonic water. Take vitamin C. That's good advice. Cab says, rhubarb, matcha, green tea, echinacea. Grow your own tea. Start with a window box. That's a good idea. Derek recommends Alita, a movie by Robert Rodriguez. I haven't seen that one. I've seen a bunch of his films, though. El Mariachi, Desperado. I think he started doing Spy Kids. Pretty amazing guy, Robert Rodriguez. I have his biography here on the shelf. I haven't read it. But incredible indie filmmaker, really a do-it-yourself guy. Came out of Mexico, made El Mariachi, limited budget, incredible film. Then he made Desperado, kind of a big budget version of it. Worked with Quentin Tarantino. That's why I know about him. Dusk Till Dawn, Death Proof, those other weird movies I haven't seen. But I like Robert Rodriguez. He's cool. I'll bet Alita's a cool movie. It sounds like spacey. Honey says you can grow wheatgrass, winter red wheat, pennies a day, living foods with chlorophyll and oxygen. I think we're all going to have at-home gardens before this is over. Tear out those lawns. Let's make some gardens. Let's see. I think we're getting back to the front of the chat. Almost there. Plasma is helping people save lives. We could all donate blood, especially if you have one of the blood types that they really need. You still have to go outside, though. I don't know. General Byzantine says that he's going to work on the LibreMesh Lightning Network project, but he has a very long to-do list. Let's see. Graham Hancock stuff about ancient societies. Check that out. Thinking of Vonnegut, Jennifer says, do you remember the virus in Slapstick? Slapstick, I think, is the one where the Chinese make themselves smaller because there's too many Chinese and not enough space. So they make some kind of a thing that shrinks them down. And then we have this problem of all these microscopic people around. I think that's the one. It was also the Richard Nixon one, and Slapstick. I think it was the one where it's Lonesome No More, which is one of my favorite Vonnegut ideas. Again, we should institute this generally, and we already have. Like, look at this group right here. We've self-selected our family here. And what Vonnegut said is that what people really want is, more family. They want more cousins and more brothers. So he said that everyone should be assigned a middle name, like Jet, and that you should be assigned a number, like Jet 15. And now all of a sudden, anyone who has a Jet is your brother. Anyone who has a 15 is your cousin. And you now have tons more relatives to go call on. And sure, some of them you won't like and you won't want to hang out with, but other ones will be cool. And they'll have a bunch of clubs for these people, like Jet clubs or 15 clubs, only for 15 people. and that it would give us this brotherhood that we want, this sisterhood, this familyness that we've lost. Very cool idea. I love Vonnegut. He's full of ideas. And again, I think we should do that one. We've pretty much already have. Like, I'm Thomas Bitcoin Hunt, and probably a lot of other of you are as well. We have similar names now. But yeah, it's a fun idea. It's fun to think about Vonnegut ideas and to read books and think about ideas. AR also writes that high levels of cleanliness can weaken our defense systems. I've definitely heard that. I've heard about that soap with the antibiotic soap. I don't know, I'm not saying it right. Antimicrobiology, you know what I'm saying. Biological soap, whatever. You're not supposed to use that because it takes the microbes off your hands. Then you don't have any microbes. Then you don't have any defenses. The entire world might become like that. We might become overly clean. Maybe the reason you don't want to go out is because it's too clean. Okay, so Alita is Alita Battle Angel 2019. Okay, so it's only came out last year, so I'm not that far behind. It says it's based on a Japanese manga, so that sounds cool. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, produced by James Cameron, who co-wrote the script with Laeta Kalogridis. Sounds cool. Alita Battle Angel. Check that out. They say it's good in the chat. Towers Comics says it's a cypherpunk classic, so gotta check it out. Someone says they got free television channels for COVID-19. That's all right, I guess. Rodriguez was a medical guinea pig to help fund El Mariachi. Oh, that's awesome. He took part in a weird test or donated blood. I read this great book back in the day called Feature Filmmaking at Used Car Prices. And one of the things he talked about, and it's not really valid anymore, but at the time, he said that you should go out and buy 2 reels of film, undeveloped film. And then you should put it in your refrigerator because that's what you had to do with reels of film. And that if you don't make a movie in a year, the film will expire. And I was like, whoa, that's bold. That's very cool. Of course, now you can make an incredible movie on your phone. You don't need film. But the idea is there. The idea of sinking the costs. It was expensive to get 2 reels of film. The idea of making it real. Your dream of making a movie is now real. It exists right there in your fridge. And maybe if you go out and shoot it, you could make the next Clerks, make the next Reservoir Dogs or El Mariachi, as we're talking about today. That was great stuff. I don't know that I ever bought a reel of film, though. Let's see. People are interested in Slapstick or Lonesome No More. I think that's the one. Cool stuff. And Michael is getting a snack. It's always a good time to get a snack. I remember breakfast. I had generic Rice Krispies and almond milk. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's only because I bought 3 boxes of generic Rice Krispies that I'm still happily enjoying my cereal. Japan. Hygiene fatigue raises risks of a second wave outbreak. And I feel this too. The people that are outside with the masks and are being careful are getting tired of wearing masks, getting tired of being outside, getting tired of being careful. So this is definitely going to be a problem. The new world doesn't care. You have to wear the mask. Otherwise, you'll get sick. So, but hygiene fatigue is definitely something to keep an eye on. From the UK, how did the government get testing so wrong? And it's a long article, free to read, from the Financial Times. Very nice to see. Nice but ironic to see all these newspaper websites opening themselves back up like they were before. We've removed our paywall so that you can enjoy this important information. Maybe it always should have been that way, but then again, now is not the time to save the newspapers, or maybe that was another time. And come on, be a capitalist. We're not saving anything. The free market. Google News is a better place to read news, so it wins. Joe Biden had a CNN town hall on the coronavirus. Let's check that out. How would the world be different if Joe Biden had ran for president in 2016 like his dying son begged him to do? Joe Biden versus Trump would have been a very different race than Hillary Clinton versus Trump. A lot of people don't like Hillary Clinton and don't really have feelings the same way for Biden. He's not as strident or as divisive as perhaps Hillary is. Let's see, I thought they had a list. Here we go. Joe Biden says that there would be no evictions and no health care costs. He would suggest a 3-month freeze on rent payments, government coverage of all health care expenses related to coronavirus, and let's see. He also backs a temporary nationwide shutdown. So he's in agreement with Bill Gates, not Donald Trump here. He would recommend that governors temporarily lock down their states for a period of time to stop the spread of the coronavirus, aligning himself closer to the billionaire Microsoft founder's suggestion that the country needs a lengthy shutdown, not the president's hope that the country would reopen in mid-April. Biden says that pitting public health against economic health is a false choice. Biden argued that the economy could only rebound once the public health emergency was brought under control. He says that it's a false choice to make, saying that you either open the economy or everything goes to hell. You cannot make this economy grow until you deal with the virus. I'm in agreement with that. It seems pretty reasonable from presidential candidate Joe Biden. A scary story coming out of Pakistan. Countries are starting to hoard food, threatening global trade. As the story said, Pakistan is a major producer of wheat. Man, this ad thing keeps coming up. Well, we can't read this, but in Pakistan, they're not exporting wheat anymore. They're seeing it as a national issue to stockpile and hoard food. This could be a big pullback on economics and international trade if food trade slows down and countries instead hoard food for their own people. This is only just starting out. This is a little story right now, but it could be a bigger story. So let's keep an eye on that. BuzzFeed exclusive. Starbucks employees across the U.S. say that stores were kept open with little guidance on how to handle the coronavirus, all while baristas and customers were getting visibly sick. So once again, if people don't handle this right, we're critical of them. We're critical of the Starbucks Corporation. They handled this poorly. Next time, look for them to have better rules and better health safety guidelines in place to stop faster if this happens again. Coffee does seem like an essential service. You could see how they're probably confused. And again, it happened really quick. But still, they should have taken decisive action. They should have shut down sooner. So again, we can be critical of things that don't go right and hope that they improve in the future. That's the point of criticism. Keeping an eye on the price of Bitcoin as it is in the corner of this broadcast, the price of Bitcoin is down 4.6% in the last 24 hours with a current price of $6,094. Looks like it's declined from around $6,400 to $6,100 just while we've been watching this show. Boeing is offering 3 Dreamliners for delivering supplies. According to Stone Kettle, though, we have an entire fleet of U.S. Air Force C-5 Galaxies, C-17 Globemasters, C-130 Hercules, with crews fully trained and experienced in delivering supplies in the most difficult conditions and capable of operating in biologically active environments. Why aren't we using them? And again, not a big fan of the military in normal times, but in the time of crisis, in the time of a disaster, this is their time to shine. This is what we pay them for. I'm not sure why we aren't using Air Force planes to distribute supplies, why we're working with Boeing. It's very strange. Might just be a minor thing. Perhaps we're also using the airplanes. We just don't know about it. So, benefit of the doubt. Trump says that the press should be forced to reveal sources. Direct quote from his Twitter account. Very often fake news, lamestream media should be forced to reveal sources, just as they did in the long ago past. Stone Kettle picks up the story and says, you mean the long ago past? Like in Soviet Union and Nazi Germany? The press is the only private enterprise specifically given enumerated rights in the Constitution, because a free press is the watchdog of liberty and the natural enemy of tyrants. No wonder Trump hates it. And as you guys recall, the press, often called the Fourth Estate, the unofficial fourth branch of government, considered essential by the founding fathers such as Washington and Hamilton and others as a watchdog on the government. The way that the people would learn that their government was doing bad is by reading about it in the press, allowing the people to change their government. In a king or a totalitarian government, it doesn't matter. You just control the press. You just control the news. In a free society, you have to have a free press that can openly report on the government so we can improve the government. It's a cycle. They're connected. But he's not seeing that. He has a different view. Shout out to Wired Magazine. They really want me to buy a subscription to Wired Magazine. I always had a subscription before. They're down to $5 for a whole year. That's like one magazine. I'm thinking about doing it, although in a lot of ways I was so tired of throwing out the old ones. You know, just magazines just keep coming, and you never have time to read them and that kind of thing. But look at their ad they're playing to me. Bitcoin is listed first. Wired Magazine was never about Bitcoin 5 years ago. They've never written about mad Bitcoins or this channel or this show. But apparently now they're into Bitcoin so much they list it first. And if you go down a bit, blockchain as well. So pretty funny advertisement from Wired. Maybe I'll give them $5. Maybe you should give them $5. Wired is all right. Magazines are kind of cool. We're certainly not going to go out and buy them. Better have them delivered to the house. That would make more sense. And as we talked about before, U.S. coronavirus cases top 100,000 infected, doubling in 3 days. If it doubles again in another 3 days, it'll be 200,000. Towers Comics also says you should subscribe to 2600 magazine. That's a good magazine. I used to read that back in the day. It's been a while, though. Back in the day, one of my favorite articles was... I always like kind of the more hacky articles rather than the serious technical ones. But you could go into Walmart, and if you pushed a certain combination of buttons on the intercom, you could take over the intercom, and you could say all kinds of goofy things. So I thought that'd be fun. That's the kind of hacking I would be into. Just kind of, I suppose it's griefing, or it's more comedy based. Certainly not damaging anything. But yeah, I love 2600. It's a great magazine. Classic. Shout out to April, who says, today I recommend remembering the real George S. Patton, who understood the value of acting quickly. A good plan, violently executed right now, is far better than a perfect plan executed next week. General Patton. I don't know if that was a saying before he said it, because it's a classic, or if he came up with it. But it's a classic Patton quote. And the reason she's bringing this up, the reason it's coming up is because apparently, and I haven't seen the video yet, but apparently Geraldo Rivera, former late afternoon talk show host, the guy that got his nose broken by a chair and had some like skinhead neo-Nazis or something on his show, the guy who opened Al Capone's vault live on TV only to find out that it was empty. Geraldo Rivera, he now works for Fox News. Allegedly, he's a real journalist now. And he's apparently comparing Trump to General Patton. As Operative X writes here, it's confirmation that we're trapped in the dumbest timeline and that 2020 is pure garbage. I also agree with socially distant trial lawyer who writes, he's a lot like General Patton, except for the whole willing to serve part, and the bravery part, and the leadership part. But he and Patton have one thing in common, baldness. So I'm a big fan of General Patton, and I don't think he has very much in common with Trump at all. I wouldn't go out of my way to make this comparison. I disagree. And we do have positive news about the president. President Trump is allegedly using the Defense Production Act to require GM to make ventilators. Could have done this last week, could have done this 2 months ago, but at least we're doing it now. Let's do it. Let's make those ventilators. As I said, he appointed Navarro as the Defense Production Administrator. We now have someone who should, allegedly, supposedly, be in charge of producing protective gear, producing ventilators, and distributing them to our country. This is a positive step forward. Congratulations. I hope they use the act well. A Philadelphia hospital remains closed as talks between the owner and the city fall through. The hospital in Philadelphia has nearly 500 beds and has been closed for months in the center of the city. And according to the New York Times, it will remain empty, city officials said, because they cannot accept the owner's offer, buy the hospital or lease it for almost $1 million a month. And I know we're all big believers in private enterprise and freedom and all these kind of things here, but it kind of seems like the owners of this hospital are holding the state and the city for ransom and refusing to let them have it. It seems like the Army Corps of Engineers should just kind of roll in and, at least for the point of this crisis, take over the hospital. I know that's everyone just freaked out. Oh, no. But what are we going to do? Are we going to let 500 hospital beds in the middle of Philadelphia sit there while there's sick people around them? Is that what we're going to do? No, they're going to solve that. They'll solve that one. Sad story. After a 40-year-long shift from traditional pensions that would just pay you, say, like $1,000 a month, just kind of pay you out of the money, to individual 401k retirement accounts, which are just full of stocks and mutual funds and bonds and things, Americans' financial security is now defenseless against whatever crisis comes along. And the coronavirus is destroying Americans' retirement dreams. And this was the big problem with linking retirement up with the stock market. They also wanted to link your medical care up with the stock market. You're supposed to get a health savings account. And in general, this has been the Republican project for the past 20 or 30 years. It's a pretty obvious benefit. More money into the stock market. Stocks go up. Every existing investor benefits. But it's an obvious downside in times like this when people's retirement is wiped out. This is likely going to lead to an expansion of Social Security to keep the elderly from dying on our streets, which once again is going to affect you and is going to affect everyone else. Everyone's connected. Paul Graham writes, something I didn't fully realize until the last month. It's dangerous to have a leader whose base holds him to a low standard. If Trump's base insisted he take charge of the COVID-19 response, he'd have to. But since they're satisfied with press conferences, that's all we get. I agree with that. It was very disappointing to me, all the people that were upset about me talking politics were not willing to hold their leader accountable. What we're really doing here is we're saying there was a month where he did nothing. We'd prefer he did something. And now, here in the short term, things like activating the Defense Production Act is a positive thing. Let's do more of those. And again, we need the base to hold him to a higher standard. We need to expect more from our leaders, not less. I might have to throw in some artificial commercial breaks or something in this show so I can just drink water and clear my throat. I'm talking too long consecutively, I think, is the problem. But I'm trying to deal with it, deliver a good show. We're over the 2-hour mark. That's pretty good. Haven't even shown you any books left yet. Let's see if we can get through the news. getting to the top of the stack here. Angus Johnson writes that the rate of mask wearing in New York City has gone up dramatically in the last week. Official encouragement and instruction as to proper use would be very welcome. So we're all hoping the CDC will change their guidance and start guiding Americans to wear masks when outside. I turned on CNBC this morning, and the market was closed. Instead, they were playing a infomercial for Emeril Lagasse and the Power Air Fryer 360. We're going to bam it up a notch. Let's bam it up a notch. It was pretty funny. This show is playing in the exact spot where the Morning Bell show should be. So funny stuff, CNBC. Not working today. And we already played this, that Governor Cuomo operates on the data and on the numbers. That's the kind of leader personally that I'm looking for in this crisis. I want someone that's focused on the reality of the situation and improving those numbers. So, and the Trump activating the Defense Production Act actually changes his previous position and moves against businesses. Previously, the idea was that the businesses will just volunteer and they'll just start making things on their own and we don't have to spur them on. Trump has changed positions on that. He is now moving against the businesses and hopefully will be using this act to order them to produce protective gear and ventilators so that we can solve the shortage, so that we can get through the virus with less fatalities and less infection. Good for everybody. So again, we're celebrating him on this. This is a positive thing the president did. I hope he keeps doing it. I hope it works out with the, intentions, with the consequences we want, with the outcomes. I hope that the outcomes are what we want. There's Back Balaji talking about masks. We talked about that. George Gao, Director General of the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Protection, says, "What mistakes are other countries making?" He says, "The big mistake in the U.S. and Europe, in his opinion, is that people aren't wearing masks. This virus is transmitted by droplets and close contacts. Droplets play a very important role. You've got to wear a mask because when you speak, there are always droplets coming out of your mouth. Many people have asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic infections. If they are wearing a face mask, it can prevent droplets that carry the virus from escaping and infecting others." So there you go. It's good to wear a mask. Andrew Yang getting a little cheeky here. You know what would have helped before the crisis, during the crisis, and after the crisis? Universal basic income. When you're right, you're right, you're right. And he's right there. We talked about this. Shout out to Rachel Chung in Hong Kong. She had the story where she said they're not buying Nintendo Switches, masks, and toilet paper anymore. They're buying yoga mats and dumbbells. People are trying to stay healthy at home. I saw a lot of workout people talking about how angry they were that they couldn't go to the gym and they were going to have to give up their gains. So you got to do what you can, try to work out at home. And I also saw that one of the real reasons for postponing the Olympics is that not everyone has access to a private training facility where they can continue training. A lot of these athletes are stuck in small apartments without access to gear, and their fantastic bodies are atrophying. Their ability to throw the discus and whatever, you can't practice it inside. Virtual reality discus, it's just not as good. So it's going to affect everything, and these athletes are going to have to retrain. I don't know what they're going to do. It's a very difficult situation for an athlete in this as well, or just for a normal person that wants to stay fit, especially since staying fit, not being overweight, can help you against the virus. Being overweight can make you weaker to the virus. Sorry. Shout out to Plan B at 100 trillion USD on Twitter. He says, if you see Bitcoin as a protocol like TCP/IP, POP, IMAP, HTTP, etc., instead of a product or a company, it'll become clear that the next Bitcoin is highly unlikely, if not impossible. Network effects are important. You need developers, miners, exchangers, investors, liquidity, etc. And Bitcoin has all of those. So very strong position for Bitcoin. Very difficult for someone to become the next Bitcoin. A lot easier to become the next ICO or the next Ethereum clone. I don't know. They just don't have the same kind of support. We're getting ready for the call-in show. I think that link went to the wrong link, though, so I'm going to get rid of that tweet. Sorry about the link confusion this morning. There's a lot of things to set up these days. There's a lot of strands in old Duder's head, you know. But I promised you books, and I don't have a lot of voice left. But let's see some books. Today's books are randomly selected off the shelf. These are international books. I never really traveled that much, but in 2017, through the last few years, I've been really fortunate I was able to go to Europe for some Bitcoin conferences. And while I was there, I did a couple of offshoot visits to countries and things that I'd always wanted to see. So it was really cool. This book is called Casa Batlló. It's about Gaudí. He's an architect in Barcelona, and he made this incredible house called the Casa Batlló. And I don't know, I can probably, maybe you can see this. I mean, here's some of it. Here's the blue walls inside. You can see how it looks like water. The different colored tiles were chosen to make it look like water rolling down. The house looks like that on the roof. It's pretty crazy. This is also known as the House of Bones because of the structure of the balconies, the way that they're interconnected on the outside. Let me see if I can find a good picture. Here we go. Here's the balconies on the outside. You can see they have kind of a skeletal look, especially those supports there look like maybe a femur or a leg bone, large supports. Just a fantastic, interesting house. I especially like this book. It's not coming out too great, but this is only close-up pictures. It's one of these really cool books that's just, it's just cool pictures of the things. So it's great to look at and flip through. It's also got some stories about that book. So if you're in Barcelona, check out Gaudí and Casa Batlló, as well as, of course, Sagrada Familia, the amazing cathedral there that Gaudí designed. Our next book is very obscure. This is Gigantea, the Temple and Heritage Park in Gozo. And here's a picture of part of the temple. You can see the large stones. I'll try to find a better picture. But Gozo is a small island off the coast of Malta. And I was in Malta for a Bitcoin conference. And my friends decided they wanted to go to this little island. And so we took a big car ferry there. And we took the rental car, whatever, over. And we drove around. And one of the things we went to was this amazing temple. And this temple is as old as Stonehenge, maybe even older, and has similarly very large stones that we don't exactly know how they got there. We think that they probably dug into the ground first, but it's also up on a hill, so they had to drag them up on the hill. The official story, through history, for how this temple was built was giants. Gigantea, it was called, because they believed that giants had come and moved these large stones into position. Originally, it had a roof, too, so this would be an enclosed temple, and all kinds of rituals and blocks and things. But it was very cool. You could just walk around it. It's a United Nations historical heritage site, so they have a very nice, as you can see there's a museum and some information about the place. But Gigantea in Gozo. Also pretty neat, it was included on the Europeans tour. They used to do these, what's the word? They would go on like a tour of Europe to be civilized people. And one of the places that you would go was Gozo to see the things that these giants had allegedly built. So pretty cool. They had like a painting of some guys on their, international Europe tour thing going there. This one is also pretty obscure. This is called St. Margaret, Queen of Scotland, and her chapel. And you can see on the back here, it's kind of a nondescript, plain on the outside, but pretty on the inside, and a very small little chapel. This was part of Edinburgh Castle up on the hill, and it's a very small chapel dedicated to St. Margaret. And not a lot of people were in there. Not a lot of people were looking at it. It wasn't a very big tourist attraction or anything like this, but they had a really nice little book for a couple bucks. and I picked it up. That's what the real chapel looks like. I sat there on those stone wooden benches there. And it was pretty neat to go to Edinburgh Castle. It's up on the hill in the middle of Edinburgh. It looks down on the whole thing. Kind of looks, all of Edinburgh looks like Harry Potter. That's where she lived when she wrote the book. There's a restaurant or a bar or something that claims to be the birthplace of Harry Potter because she worked there and she used to scribble down notes in her free time. It's a pretty neat story. And yeah, Edinburgh was great. Looked very much like an old Scottish town. It was funny. It's Scotland, but I thought in a way that Edinburgh was the way I'd always pictured England to look. I don't know. It just looked like Mary Poppins or whatever, like the old streets and the curves and the old lamp lights, you know. So it was very cool to go to Edinburgh Castle and to check out the very small St. Margaret, Queen of Scotland, and her chapel. Again, I chose these at random off the shelf, so they are what they are. This is a neat one. This is called A Pocket Guide to Germany. You can see it's a small green book, and on the other side it says the same thing, but in Germany, that this is the handbook for American soldiers in Deutschland. So this is a really neat recreation of a historical artifact. This is what the GIs were given when they were sent to Germany after World War II. So this is a lot of stuff about how to talk to the German people. There's some phrases in here. There's a really interesting and obviously dated essay where it talks about how the German people were recently our enemy. And so you can't just trust the enemy. But at the same time, you know, they're mostly good people. They don't really want any trouble, that kind of thing. And yeah, just a fascinating little historical book. I haven't read it that much. I flipped through it. And what's so neat about this one is that it's half English, half German. So this is the first time this book's ever been printed in German, so the German people could read what the GIs were told about them. So that's pretty neat, huh? That's a pretty cool little book. And I mean, mostly it's good stuff, but a lot of it is like, yeah, it's an interesting line for the GIs to walk, because obviously you want to trust the Germans. They're occupied. But at the same time, we were just fighting them 6 months ago. You can't trust them. They might have some kind of, you know, deep-seated hatred or some kind of thing. So just very interesting, and I didn't expect to see it there. I found it at the, you know, check stand or something. They got me. You know, I'm a sucker for books. But yeah, Pocket Guide to Germany. Cool, huh? And then the last book today, I tried to get a slightly larger book, but this isn't really that big. This is called The Honors of Scotland. I also got sorry about that. I also got this at Edinburgh Castle, which is a lot like the Tower of London. The Tower of London, when I was a kid, I always thought it was the Tower Bridge. I always thought that the crown jewels were kept in the Tower Bridge because it would be safe. So it's funny, I actually went and I did a big tour of the Tower Bridge, so I know all about that too now. And we went to the real Tower of London. But it's much more like a castle, much like a medieval thing. And what's neat about the tower is it has many little museums inside it. Like the British troops have a different museum for different groups of fighters and different kind of things in their history, as well as the crown jewels of England. And in the same way, Edinburgh Castle is the same thing. It has a bunch of little museums inside, and one of those museums has the crown jewels of Scotland. And that's where I got this book. And one of the neatest things about this that I really want to show you guys is the Stone of Scone. I'd heard of it, but never seen it and never really pictured it. But what it is it's actually a big rock. So if you can see this throne here, it has a rock inside of the throne, that big slab. That's what the king sits on when he's crowned. And the English went out of their way to go to Scotland to take this rock from the Scottish people. There's a really interesting story in here about how some Scots broke in and stole it back. They were even afraid that if it had broken into multiple pieces, it would be easier to carry. Fortunately, it didn't. It's still intact. It's the stone, and the Stone of Scone. And yeah, you can see it here in the thing. I mean, it's pretty neat to see it in as part of a throne. I didn't see it that way. I just saw it loose. And so yeah, they stole it. They took it away. Here's pictures of the stone when it was recovered. I think, guys, you see how many guys it takes to carry. And here's the actual stone. Here, cool. So it doesn't look like anything at all. Like this was right in the case next to a giant, beautiful sword, next to, you know, crowns and jewels and all this stuff. And I asked the guide, I was like, okay, you know, what's the deal? What's the rock? You know, tell me what's going on. And this is the Stone of Scone. This is a magical rock that all the kings of England sit on before they're crowned king. This still happens today. Even today, they'll go up to Scotland, get the stone, bring it down to London or wherever they, you know, Buckingham Palace, wherever they crown the new king or queen, and they'll sit on the magic stone. So pretty weird, huh? And this is all factual and true. I don't know why they do it, but they do it. But yeah, Honors of Scotland, Edinburgh Castle. Very cool. Definitely check out Edinburgh if you can. I stayed in a cheap Airbnb. I guess there aren't Airbnbs anymore. And I got a cheap flight there too. So I don't know. But that's International Book Day. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We talked about chess pieces. We talked about politics. We talked about coronavirus. And now we talked about international books. So I hope I get to travel again someday and bring back more books. But if not, I've got lots of books here to talk about. So thanks so much to everybody for joining us, giving us a thumbs up and a share. I'm pretty much out of voice right now. I would open it up for phone calls. I mean, the chat doesn't seem to be moving that much, so I'm pretty sure people have moved on. We talked a lot today. So we'll be back again tomorrow for Sunday, Big Book Sunday. I'm going to be showing you some more big books. You won't believe it. I have more big books. So be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share if you want to donate Bitcoin. There's a donation link in the address below. That's the wrong graphic. And then, yeah, you can donate, support the show, sponsor the show, get us advertising, all kinds of stuff. I don't know. That's all happening. But for right now, it's just a really cool conversation where we all chat and hang out. So let's keep doing that. Stay inside, stay safe, wear a mask. Let's all look out for each other. And let's try to make it better. Let's get through this virus. Let's not freak out too much. And that's about it. Until next time, bye-bye.